Okay, try your microphone. No, try it again. No. Okay, done again. Do that. Gotta do that. Okay, now try yours. So make sure. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you.
They can be moved before the night's over, too. Michael, where's the black, what is it? What do they got? I'm going to move them before the night.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order. Stand for the singing of O Canada, please. O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all thy sons command, with glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Record of attendance, Linda? You good? Declarations of conflict of interest, anyone? Not yet. Approval of agenda. Now, there's additions, there's another page. 11A, I think everybody got this. So are these automatically on now? Okay. Agricultural Society request for meeting, Travel Media Association, typhoon, and destruction of documents. So these are all additions. Do we have any more additions or deletions? Yes? Oh, sorry, I can't see your light. Go ahead, CAO.
Your Worship, earlier today I circulated some information concerning the ferry terminal, and I have a resolution to present tonight concerning the contribution agreement, if Council would entertain it.
You want that added here? Okay, 11E, terminal. Okay, moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Dawes. Any further discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Approval of minutes. Public hearing November 14th, 2013. Motion to approve. So moved by Councillor Langell. Second by Councillor Dennis. Discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Town Council, November 14, 2013. Motion to approve. Moved by Councillor Landrill. Second by Deputy Mayor. Discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Town Council, November 28, 2013. Moved by Councillor Langell. Second by Councillor Dawes. Any discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Committee of the Whole, November 28th, 2013. Moved by Councillor Langell, second by Deputy Mayor. Discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Town Council, December 4th, 2013. Motion to approve. Moved by Councillor Dawes, second by Councillor Dennis. Discussion? It's a lot of meetings. Got a lot accomplished, I think. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Business arising. Zion Church deregistration request. So we're here tonight to make a decision. Mr. Nickerson. Okay. If you can have a couple minutes if you want to come right up to the microphone. You ready for it now? Yeah. Just make sure you're nice and close to the microphone.
Oh, okay. Are we happy now?
I'm
Okay.
always happy.
I know, but you're a recorder. I promised the mayor I'd be brief, and I'll make my best effort to do that. I don't want to rehash the past. You've had hearings. You've heard lots of things. My purpose, and I think you know the trustees of the church, you know the members of the church, the members of the community. I mean, these are good citizens. And I do, but I will start by saying that the members of the church are not, would love to be able to preserve the church, but quite frankly, they can't. They don't have the money and they don't have the expertise. They have been open to give the church away, basically, for many, many months now. As you'll recall, it was offered to the town. The town decided no. It's been offered to others. Basically, as far as I can see, nobody wants to take the liability. But the fundamental thing that I want council to understand tonight, as I used to say, not to go through any of the past, but in August of this year, the insurer canceled their liability policy on that building. Through the good offices of Mike Trask, who we all know is probably one of the most influential insurance brokers in the province, he managed to get them an extension to December 31st of this year. Just to give you an example of how much risk the insurers felt there was, the premium for a year prior to that was about $350. It cost $2,000 to get the 3 months extension. Basically, the church cannot get the insurance, and they've gone to Mike, who's probably the best around. My concern, when I reviewed this material for the church, one of the things that I was concerned about was how they were constituted. I discovered they were constituted by, and they were incorporated by statute in 1960. I've provided a copy of that to Mr. Barrow, your solicitor. What is particularly concerning to me as a lawyer, and I think Greg would confirm this, is that that statute does not have a limited liability provision in it. And what that means is that the members of that church could all be held liable for any liability that the church has. That is a very serious concern. So now we're left in a situation where the church does not have limited liability protection in their incorporation statute, and they have no insurance. They're facing a situation where we know Mr. Comeau, the engineer, had very serious concerns about structural problems and failure. I note in the record I reviewed, Mr. Cowie, who the town reviewed, indicated some problems, indicated there would be more work needed to do. In this town, we're all aware of the problems that we've had with brick structures. We know the Grand Hotel had to be taken down. We know what happened at the Odeon. We know that brick structures are notoriously a structural problem. Is it certain that disaster is going to happen? No, of course not. How high is the risk? We don't know. But we do know that there is risk. And we don't know that if a wall falls down or there's problems, it will be catastrophic. There are buildings next door, there are people next door, there are people on the street. So how do you assess the risk? I don't know, but you've got to look at those consequences. You're dealing with a group of people, the members and trustees of that church, who are members of this community, who are, I would submit to you, good, honest citizens who've done their best. You've got adjacent property owners who have some risk too. You've got passerbys. I appeal to the council. I can tell you, and I've just come to this in the last week or two, and I can tell you, you've got some members of your community, particularly the members of this church, who are losing sleep over worrying about what's going to happen if they can't get that structure dealt with, and it appears the only way to deal with it is to take it down. If the insurance was continued, that's another thing, but it's not, and it's not likely to, and that's the situation they're facing. I'm asking this council to deregister immediately and allow them to do what they have to do, which will break their heart to do as much as anyone else in this room. But that's the reality of what they're facing. You may or may not have heard about the Heritage Trust proposal to lease the building. That I would still be willing to meet with them and talk to them. Deregistration will not affect that. If they can, even after it's deregistered, if they can come up with a plan, if they can find a way to protect, if they want to take it, if they want to negotiate to buy it for $1, that's still available to them. But for the moment, what we need to do now is we need to deregister it. We need to be able to get on with it if further discussions or whatever fail. But right now, you've got citizens in your town under tremendous stress over the risk that they face and losing sleep, and I implore you not to continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nickerson. Mr. Taylor, are you standing up to come speak? Well, okay. Let's be.
Quite frankly, I think there is a due process question here. I had not expected to speak tonight. Had I known the lawyer for the trustees was going to be here and to speak, we would have provided legal representation as well. We have not had that opportunity. So I'm just responding as I recall what has been said. There have, as you know, been many tours of this church recently. Just in the last week or so, members of the public have been invited in there. The building is not going to fall down. The church congregation itself is having its last service there, I understand, on the 28th. What we have here are attempts to scare and to hustle council and the public of Yarmouth into thinking that there are no alternatives. There are alternatives, as the lawyer knows, and we have a meeting with him tomorrow morning. If deregistration does not happen, that is going to change the equation, because we're going to have to go back and look at our commitments which we have made. We do not believe that it is impossible to get insurance. We understand that the trustees are going to have anyone who goes into that building to make a declaration. We're prepared to live with that until such time as we can get general liability insurance. And we have been assured that we can obtain that. Part of the problem is that we cannot obtain it from a landlord or from an owner who is unwilling to take part in the process. And unfortunately, we have not had that process get underway. I invited the trustees in the November meeting to meet with us. We did not even get the courtesy of a response. We invited them to meet with us a week or so ago when we sent around some documentation. We did not get a response, a receipt of documentation. What we have here are a group of people who say, on the one hand, that they want to pass the church on and they're prepared to sell it for $1. But when it comes down to sitting down and talking to them, they do not want to talk unless you've got $1 in your pocket and are prepared to put it out and buy a church which has had no proper inspection and no proper costing of what it's going to take to save it. We are prepared to do that. We are prepared to invest our money. You have seen the documents that you have in front of you. We urge you to proceed and to ignore this last-minute appeal, which was indeed a heartfelt appeal, but I think the facts of the matter are unchanged. They are, the building is what it is. It is not going to fall down. Nobody can say that except the providential Lord. But at the same time, we are facing an organization that is inviting the public in the last week or two of this year. It's not changing in the next week, 2 months, or whatever, by which time we will have done the appropriate examinations. So I would ask you, and excuse my extemporaneous response here. As I say, I was not expecting to have to come up tonight. I had had assurances that the time for public representation was over. Unfortunately, apparently, it is not. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to just add something?
Thank you, Mayor Mood. I'm speaking to you as a community person. I have spent 16 years in this community, and if I had listened to the experts, you would not have the McKinnon Canyon complex today, because every single person said tear it down. And I've shown you, when there's a will, there's a way. Look at the beautiful complex you have in your town, in our town today, because I believed it could rise above all of the criticisms that it got. This is an opportunity to save this building. The Heritage Trust has stepped forward and came to us with a gracious gift to work together with this community to save that building. If it can be saved, that building and the legacy of the people who came before all of us deserve that much respect. And I agree with Mr. Taylor. I've been through that building. It is not falling on our heads. And if it were, I want to know why the trustees would be inviting the general public through that building for the next 2 days this weekend, if it's that much of a risk. And there should be no reason anyone should go in that building if it was that detrimental, and it is not. I plead with all of you to give us and the trust the 6 months they're asking to try and find a user and a preservationist that can keep that building alive in our town for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are we ready? Need a motion. So I'm going to entertain the motion. Deputy Mayor, were you going to
Motion.
go ahead?
Yep.
Is there a
Sorry.
motion? No, sorry.
I was going to say, there was a motion from the last November meeting that was tabled to this meeting. I was just looking at the minutes here. It's,
Oh, thank you.
moved by Councillor Langell, seconded by Councillor Mooney, that the request to deregister Zion Church as a municipally registered heritage property be denied. And then that motion was tabled, so it's on the floor.
H. Okay, moved by Councillor, so where we go from here is, this is just the motion.
That's the motion
Right.
that's before council right now to be debated and voted on.
Okay, so the motion is that the request to deregister Zion Church as a municipally registered heritage property be denied. So, to make it clear, if I say all those in favor, what happens?
That would,
It's
to
just the
deny the
wording.
request to, yeah, it's to deregister, but it would be denied.
So they can't deregister.
That's right.
Okay. So all those in favor, it's gonna stay registered.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so do we understand? Okay, the motion is that the request to deregister Zion Church as a municipally registered heritage property be denied. So when I say all those in favor, it's if you're in favor of keeping it registered, okay? And then if you want it deregistered, then it's denied. Sorry, Councillor Langell, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. At the last meeting, I moved that just to get it on the floor, and also as the Chair of Heritage Committee. Who would have thought that Councillor Mooney and I would be in this situation? This has been very troubling. We've given Zion Baptist and all a considerable amount of time with regard to this. It's a very passionate, it's a very unfortunate affair. It's almost, to me, the issue before our council is the original request that was given by Zion Baptist was simply to move it up 3 months. Council decided to go with a resolution to give it the deregistration right away. In other words, it become effective immediately. There's been a lot of press, Your Worship, with regard to the group not doing its job and trying to find a suitable person. It has received a lot of public attention throughout the region, through the various media, the local media, etc., and yet no one seemed to have stepped up to the plate. Frankly, I don't think it is our concern what happens to Zion Baptist Church and any private developer. I think that is, they're the owners of the church. It is their building, and they have every right to do with their building, in my opinion, that they wish to do, as long as it's within the parameters of the Heritage Act and our own municipal heritage bylaw that we have in place. Zion has been good stewards of their building over the years. They've identified a problem. Personally, I feel very badly for Zion. As a heritage property owner myself, I'm surprised that nobody said, hey, you're in conflict of interest on this one. As an owner of a heritage property, I'm kind of concerned about what message we're sending here to the owners of properties who are heritage designated. Does this mean that if any of us want to make a change to our property, that we're going to have all kinds of agencies coming in and saying no, and you can't do this and you can't do that? I do hope that's not the case. The request from the church is very simple. They want to basically tear down their church. They originally had told us, and I don't think the situation's changed, that the timeline, they want to do it in June of 2014. I don't believe that's changed. In conversation with some of the church trustees, they are going to start the dismantling of the interior. In fact, there's been work probably started already, and many of the interiors have gone. Some of the fixtures are going to other churches, and they're doing a very good job in doing that. The church itself wanted to have it moved up so that it could effect demolition on the long days. In other words, they did not want to wait until September 30th, the date that they could effectively demolish, simply because they figured it would take too long. They want to get it down very quickly. I mean, that's the whole intent. And that's why they wanted the period that they were asking for. It's a very difficult decision, but I distributed to council earlier a letter signed by Reverend Wayne Johnson, who is the moderator of the Yarmouth County Association of Baptist Churches. I won't, Your Worship, go into all the details. However, I do want to make two comments from this letter, and I was very impressed that Reverend Johnson and the association did step up to the plate, and they simply said, they pointed out that it's our understanding that after the structural engineer's examination that the structure has reached the point where repairs far exceed the congregation's means to make repairs and become a safety issue for the public. Consequently, the church is not able to procure sufficient insurance, which leaves the congregation in a precarious situation come the end of 2014. They have offered to relinquish the property, etc., etc. I think it's very important to note that to them that the church is emotional for the church, for all of the Baptist churches in the area. This was a mother church. His comment, they are trying to show due diligence in their desire to responsibly deal with the aging building which they've worshipped and served for many years. We understand the historical importance of Zion to the town and also to our churches. Many of the churches of our association were started because of Zion, but we know there is a life cycle to a church building. And I think this is the important line that moved me. A church is not a building, it is a people. And I feel for the congregation, Your Worship, and I would safely say I'm probably one of the greatest proponents of heritage in the community, but at this time, my heart goes out to the congregation. They are a hurting congregation. I respect all of the individuals who are trying to help, but as Charlie Jess once commented to me, if everybody who stepped up to who's been fighting to save that church would come to our Sunday church service, we would not be in this predicament now. So it is sad. It is sad. I will not vote for the motion. I have to vote against the motion because I think the deregistration should be granted, if nothing else, just to spare the congregation. Thank you.
You. Deputy Mayor?
Your Worship, I'm also in favor of deregistration. As tough as it is to speak about that, we can speak about it quietly in conversation with 2 or 3 of us, or and I know people well on both sides of the issue, and I just feel that there's been lots and lots of discussion, and so basically I'm going to simply say that I'm in support of deregistration, and we'll look forward to the motion or motions. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Is your light on? Councillor Dawes?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is not a comfortable position to be in, and I can see both sides. I truly can. That the trustees and the congregation of the Baptist Church are tired and weary, that's understandable, and it's obvious as well. They've been working who knows how many years at trying to keep their walls together. As I understand, they have offered the church for sale for $1. They have to close their doors on December 31st. Their insurance runs out on December 31st. They want to tear it down, I understand. But I don't believe that demolition is going to happen within the next month or two. Don't know what the demolition date is going to be. There was talk about wanting to get it organized so that they could take advantage of the most daylight hours of the year for their demolition, which is the end of June, early July. Actually, it's June 21st, I believe. On the other hand, so that they can get on with their lives, understandably so. Now, on the other hand, we have someone who is willing to step up to the plate between now and the end of June, take over all the responsibilities. They are willing to take over the cost of heat, light, insurance, under a legal lease agreement. That would give everyone time. I can only see this as a win-win for everyone, both for the church, for the congregation, and also for the residents of today of Yarmouth and the residents of tomorrow, so that we will not have one less heritage building for them to look at pictures at and remember. They're willing to step up to the plate, they're more than willing to step up to the plate. And if that takes care of between December 31st and June, then by all means, I think that is more than fair, more than reasonable. If at the end of that time, they're experts that they can draw from, both local, provincial, federally, internationally. If anyone has a roster of experts, they do, and they have proven it. I would say give them the chance. If at the end of their lease or at the end of June, if their experts say, nope, sorry, lovely building, but can't help you, then fine, by all means. I would even then propose a motion to, at that time, sorry, I keep whacking that. If at that time, then I would be in favor of even bringing forth a motion to accelerate that date to July, so they wouldn't have to wait until September. But at least be fair and reasonable and give everyone a chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis?
Yes, I don't want to say the same as Councillor Dawes, because I totally agree. Before, we didn't have anything on the table. Now we actually have a proposal, and I think we should be working with that. But I want to ask our solicitor, if the Heritage takes it over, does that keep the trustees from being liable if something happens?
Go ahead.
Well, I haven't looked at the lease. I don't know under what arrangements they'd be taking it over, so it would depend upon whatever wording might be in the lease or whatever.
But if they get it insured, it's just like myself renting a building. I have to have insurance if anybody gets hurt, so wouldn't it be the same? It wouldn't be the landlord, then it would be myself, because it's my business.
If they get insurance, yeah.
Yes.
But I don't know. I'm not privy to what arrangements that would be. A lease arrangement might be with the Heritage Trust. I can't say.
So I think that's the biggest problem that we face, is not knowing if they really can get insurance.
Well, I believe that Mr. Nickerson, in his proposal to us, I may be corrected if I'm wrong, Andy, but I think you made a comment that Mike Trask felt there wasn't going to be an availability of insurance after December 31st. And Mr. Trask is one of the larger insurance brokerages, probably in Atlantic Canada, and he can't. And I agree with Councillor Dawes and Councillor Dennis with the comment that yes, let's give it time. My concern is that we have not heard of an insurance company that is going to take this over. And I believe we were given a figure that it was quite expensive under Mr. Trask's offer, and I mean, he was kind enough to do that. But if you add up the $30,000, I think that's for the study or whatever that's going to be done, plus, and I wasn't clear in the MOU, which we read, if that 30,000, and maybe the solicitor can sort it out for me, but my understanding is there was a number of 30,000 thrown in the MOU that was being memorandum of understanding. Now, I did speak with Mr. Taylor this morning, and he told me the 30,000 is for the study, that the additional costs were going to also be borne by the Heritage Trust separately, but I didn't quite read that in the MOU. Maybe I missed something. So there's a few uncertainties there. The question of liability, they legally own the building. They're leasing the building to another individual, as you as the tenant would cover yourself. But the question I'm curious about is, let's say it was an accident happens on the exterior of the building. Hypothetically, we get another Hurricane Juan or whatever, and I know we have conflicting opinions as to whether or not the building's sound, but let's say hypothetically we do get a huge winter storm, and let's say hypothetically the building collapses, and let's say hypothetically it collapses on the house to the west. Who would be legally liable there? Would it be the congregation, or would it be Heritage Trust, the proposed tenant? That would be my question to the solicitor.
Well, it's hard to say under a hypothetical who would be responsible. If you're asking me, is it possible the owner of the building could be responsible under some hypothetical scenario, even if there is a lease? Yes, yeah, it certainly could be. A lot would depend on what's the wording of the lease, but again, if it's something that the landlord's not, the tenant's not responsible for, then the landlord could be responsible for that. And certainly if there's a catastrophic situation, most likely the tenant and the landlord would end up getting sued.
Okay, now I got a lot of lights going on. I'm going to let Councillor Langell finish.
Thank you. Yeah. So just reading up, that was one of the part of the discussion was the situation with regard to risk to the congregation. As well, to waylay Mr. Taylor, I don't think anyone around the table, at least I was unaware that there was going to be a lawyer present this evening, so I do want to comment that I don't think there's any great conspiracy here to disassociate, and I congratulate the mayor for opening the forum tonight on this sensitive issue and hearing the different sides that are there. My only concern is right now is the safety of the public, a huge safety. I mean, I'll be honest, I have a basement that was supported by brick posts of 1892 vintage, the same bricks that are in Zion. Those posts no longer support my house. I have steel beams down there now because they're nothing but powder. And from what I understand in talking to two masons who worked on that church, we've got, that roof is being held up by one course of bricks. The other three courses are literally powder. Now, just to put this into perspective, so was the old Odeon Theater, the old Capitol Theater downtown when it fell down. Same situation, a roof supported by four walls of one course of bricks. I'm the one to be an alarmist, but I'm just a concern there. Now, I know people can say it's structurally sound and we can do whatever you want to do. I'm concerned about safety, and I fully support the heritage, and I commend the congregation for it, but I just wanted to add that sidebar.
Thank you. Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, this evening is not to, for me, it's not to discuss the contract that Heritage Trust and Zion Baptist Church want to get into. There are documents that they let us read them. That was very kind of them. But that's the Zion Baptist Church and Heritage Trust's decision to make. It's not mine. My decision tonight is whether I'm going to support the recommendation of my colleagues to deregister it or not deregister it. And that's what we're here for. We can beat this around the bush we have for the last 2.5 years or more. I'm tired of it, and I'm sure the congregation's tired of it. This is your first year at it. I hope you don't have to go through it again next year or the year after that. It's time to do the will of the trustees, and I will be supporting the deregistering of the building. And the contract is for them to determine whether they want to sign or not sign, not this council. And whether they can get insurance or can't get insurance, that's entirely up to them. That's not the decision the council's going to make, because that's not what they're asking us to make. They just gave us some documents to look at. Thank you very much, but that's not my decision to make whether you, as the trustees, want to enter into agreement for 5 or 6 months and prolong whatever you want to do. That's entirely up to you guys. The decision right here, there's a motion on the floor. I say, let's get with it. Thank you, Your Worship.
Good. It's a good point, because I just jotted the trustees, just because the offer doesn't mean the trustees are going to sign it. So, but, you know, and it's not. So were you going to speak? Okay. So bring her up. The motion on the floor that the request to deregister Zion Church as a municipally registered heritage property be denied. All those in favor? Opposed? 4 to 3. So it's deregistered. Okay?
No, there'd have to be a motion to deregister.
We what?
You voted to deny, so there was a motion to deny the request to deregister. And that was defeated. So there would have to be a motion to deregister it that would have to be moved, seconded, and passed.
Well, isn't that the same thing?
No.
Well, I have to ask because I need to understand. Okay?
There's no motion that's been passed. So there's no motion to deregister the property. And to deregister the property, there has to be a motion of council to do that.
Okay, so it's going to, all right, it's going to be the same, isn't it?
If people vote the same
Okay,
way, yes.
okay, I understand. Okay, so Councillor McIsaac.
Your Worship, I make a motion that we deregister the Zion Baptist Heritage registration
Okay,
as requested by Zion Baptist Church.
so moved by Councillor McIsaac. Seconded by Deputy Mayor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Nay. Okay, 4 to 3. Deregistered. And please don't let me go on Facebook and find. Don't worry. No, seriously. Yeah, I know, I know. Okay. Business. 8A. Okay, now, just a second. Okay, under this, I did put a motion. Did I not attach a motion? Yeah, I'm sorry, but I thought I had put a motion. So, okay, I just didn't, I don't see the motion. But anyway, basically, remember at the committee of the, did we not at the committee of the whole okay the modified houses? So that's, okay, so basically, what's happening here with this Friends of the Art Gallery, this letter here with the, okay, they're asking if they can place them on these places, and I thought, I didn't know if we owned them all or if anybody would be adverse to any of these places. So they want to place the Maud Lewis houses on these. They want these to be available. Councillor?
Thank you, Your Worship. I hate making sign language and all that.
No, that's okay.
After that Mandela episode there, so I don't want to make too many sign languages here. But anyway, can you describe or can you tell us where these places are? I have a little bit of my mother was French, so I talk with my hands a lot. That's not sign language.
Okay.
Okay. So, but I mean for the public, so the public will know.
All right.
Yes,
Okay. So
thank
the
you.
sites that are being considered, and they're looking for us to okay them, basically Town Hall, Frost Park. They are 4 by 8 or something like that. Yeah. The ferry terminal, which I don't know if we can, oh yeah, I guess we can okay that now. Woo-hoo! Guess we own that. Okay, Alma Square, Sealed Landers Park, and in front of the library. There are, but I think maybe over on the side. Don't even. So basically that's it, and they're just looking for the okay, because what's happening is people are pledging money towards these, but they want specific places. Okay, go ahead.
Your Worship, my wife and I, Dawn and I, have purchased or agreed to purchase one of the modified buildings, and we'll place it on a site if one of the sites that's indicated, if we as a council are approving of those sites. Doesn't have to be, it can be on someone's private property too. You know, there's obviously there's not enough room on our property on Grand Street, but there's certainly a room on one of the existing properties as mentioned in your in the letter that's addressed to you from Wendy Majestic. So I'm in favor of the project, and we've committed to the project personally, and look forward to having some fun. And if there's a motion required, I would, if it's appropriate, I would ask Jeff if it would be all right for us to commit these sites to the modified project.
Thank you, Deputy.
Second that motion.
Councillor, okay, so the motion is to approve the sites as listed to place the modified playhouses on. So moved by the deputy, seconded by Councillor McIsaac, and Councillor Langella, you're on.
It's a great project, Your Worship. I just had a quick question for the CAO, or I guess, or maybe for even Deputy Mayor. My understanding is these buildings, in some cases, are bought by private companies. No, we as a town bought one, but a private individual. We do have a interesting signage bylaw. So how do we credit, PharmaSave as the owner of this building if it's placed off-site or if it's placed in Frost Park? Are we restricted by our own signage? Because these companies should be acknowledged for their generosity in purchasing this, but I'm just wondering, is it intended to do that? And if so, is there something we can do with regard to the signage bylaw? Because I know this is something the communities in Bloom have been wrestling with. We can't even put a name on a park bench, without going through a lot of hoops. So I just want to throw that out, like, how can we get around that?
Well, personally, I don't understand what the problem with our signage bylaw is, but I'll let the CAO speak to that. Sorry.
First question was about, is it okay or is it acceptable to place these? My understanding is that these are works of art. These are not houses, right? So these are just public works of art. They're going to be placed in public areas. There is no problem with that. All that I ask is if we grant permission that the communication happen with our staff so that they're placed in such a manner as to not impede sight lines for traffic or maintenance tasks, so on. We could place them prominently without creating a problem in doing so. I don't know, I didn't understand it was the intention to put signage on these. It is?
Yeah, they went to the Chamber of Commerce and other organizations in town, and they're looking for $1,000, and you will get credit as the sponsor of that house.
Yeah, just credit.
Which would probably run afoul of the town's off-site signage bylaw, as it's presently
That was going to
constituted.
be my question.
And so can
Yes.
council exempt by resolution?
Say yes.
Well, yeah, I think it's probably something you'd have to, I don't know if you can deal with it tonight, I mean, you'd need to know what
I think we should wait.
is, but you do it up at the airport for the air show, I think, and a few other things.
Your worship,
Okay, so
I'm s- you
Deputy
got
Mayor,
lights.
then Councillor Dawes, then Councillor Dennis, and Councillor McIsaac.
Your worship, it's my understanding that at the end of the project, these homes, these locations, these 4x8 buildings are going to, it's a fundraiser, and they're going to be auctioned off. So that in the beginning, Don and Jim McLeod may spend up to $1,000 in building this project. At the end of the project, if Don and Jim want to own that home, we have to buy it back. If we don't want to own it, then it's going to go to whoever bids for it, whether it's $1, $2, or $500, or $2,000, depending on the mood of the purchaser. So it's just a fundraiser for the community. So I think it's fun. The opportunity to we're going to rewrite the planning strategy anyway.
Oh, yes, we are.
So let's go ahead and break out the law the first time.
Talk to Sonny into not writing us a ticket. Okay, Councillor Dawes?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to sit in my hands for this one. I'm not going to whack the microphone again.
Go ahead.
As soon as I was aware of this, I thought, are we going to run amok with any bylaws? Is any permit going to be required? Yes, no, maybe, or yes? I see a lot of nods. All right, let us have it.
Oh, I'm sure they probably need a permit for a garden shed, I think. You need a permit for pretty much everything.
If these are going to be placed, as I've said, as works of art, not as buildings, then I would say they do not require a permit if they are works of art.
They are.
If they are buildings, then they would require a permit, and we're going to run into a problem. So let's make some works of art, auction them off, and the owners can do what they wish with them at that point. And if they choose to use them as buildings, then they're subject to permitting requirements.
Is there any,
So we would then be auctioning off works of art.
is there any other way we can complicate this beautiful works of art? Councillor McIsaac, you're on. Throw some light. Fix her up. Fix her. I've never seen a town could complicate
Thank you,
anything.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not to cut you short, but
No, please do.
I'm not in favor of breaking any bylaws because we enforce bylaws.
Yes, we
That's
do.
not a good precedence to set. But nevertheless, I remember a time, and Jim can remember this because Jim sat on the board, and a gentleman wanted to put in some bus stops. Remember that, Jim? Like we have out here? He wanted to place them all over town and key spots where the bus stops when we had our transit service. Or maybe it was this transit service. I'm not sure. This transit service. And that was voted down. And why it was voted down is because how it was going to be at their cost, this individual's cost, but how he would pay for them, he would have advertising on them for a period of time, just a period of time. Like Jim McLeod might put PharmaSave on there for a month or 2 months, and whatever else, Superstore or Sobeys, IGA or whatever. And that didn't go through. People had concerns that they might put something distasteful on there, some nudity pictures or whatever, or something like that, or women or men with bathing suits on, and that didn't go over good with the committee of that day. I'm not joking. This is what it was. They cost probably around $10,000 a piece. He wanted to place about 10 of them around town at his cost, not our cost, to keep people out of the rain and stuff like that. Anyway, it didn't go through. That's par for the course. But these houses that they want to build, these works of art, so say, now, is it going to be different people paying $1,000 to have their shingle put up on there saying sponsor? It could be 10 people placing advertisements on these places. Then I think we best talk to Arthur McDonald and make sure that we are in the right to do this before we do this. Even though it's a fundraiser, and I'm all for it, I'm not saying I'm against it, but you can have two different standards in the town of Yarmouth. We get enough flack as it is by not permitting these signage bylaws, and we are going to fix them, hopefully, and we're going to do a lot on that. But in the time being, we have to do our due diligence, and we have to be aware that we're in the public eye, and just because we make these laws and bring these laws and enforce these laws, it doesn't give us the right to break them.
Did you speak with Arthur? Not enough to make that.
Have a clear, sorry, not enough to have a clear understanding of his impression. I think he has a clear understanding of mine.
Okay, so,
But I think if I can just add, right now you're just being asked for permission to put them on the sites, and it would have to presumably comply with all the bylaws within the town. That's all you're being asked for tonight. If, when they arrive, and if there's some issue about it, and Arthur says they're not in compliance with the bylaw, and some accommodation needs to be made, then it would have to be dealt with at that time. But I think right now, you're not being asked to make any allowances or accommodations or anything like that. You're just being asked to allow structures to be placed on town-owned property.
thank you. Councillor Dennis?
So maybe we can just have a number put on each one, and then we could have a list somewhere so that the people would know which ones they're bidding on.
Okay, that's an idea. But Arthur may okay it. So is the motion is still on the floor, and according to you, we can still pass this, but we'll have to make sure that we keep. Okay, so the motion is to approve the sites as listed to place the modified playhouses. We already moved. Didn't? Moved and seconded. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Next. Nova Scotia Power Outsourcing, Councillor Mooney. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to make a motion that in light of an indication Nova Scotia Power may be moving in a direction that would see local employees such as Lyman dismissed or overlooked for local work in favor of outsourced labor from outside our region, I move the Town of Yarmouth send a letter to Nova Scotia Power Emera, as well as Premier McNeil, the Governor and Council and Chair of Plannings and Priorities and Treasury Board, stating that we are opposed to any outsourcing work in our area that could be performed by our local employees, and furthermore, that such actions would cause considerable damage to our local economy.
Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Question's been called. All those in, yes, go ahead.
I'm in support of the motion generally. I don't want to sort of hamstring a company that wants to do work. I don't want the motion to preclude work that could be done, and if we make a motion that says it has to be done by our local people, and if it isn't done because we made that motion, then I just have a concern. If Phil, do you have any other indication? Do you have an indication that this could happen, or?
Over the last several weeks, if you look in the Chronicle Herald and listen to any of the news organizations, it's a concern not only in Yarmouth but right across the province that Nova Scotia Power Emera is doing some outsourcing of work. They're trimming down their labor force to meet their mandated goal of 9% profit for their shareholders, and it's affecting outlying areas. It doesn't affect places like Halifax because they have a concentration of people there, and they can they have callback lists that they can do on short notice. Where we're getting short changes in outer lying regions of Nova Scotia. You not only see it with Nova Scotia Power, but you see it with other organizations of the same kind. So I think this is just our indication that we support our local linesmen and our local people that work for Nova Scotia Power, and they should do everything in their control to make sure that we are adequately staffed here in southwestern Nova Scotia, Cape Breton, Amherst, or any outlying area. And I don't think we're tying their hands. I think we're actually showing that we support our local service people that keep the electricity going 24 hours a day, and I think they do a great job, and I hate to see that continuity affected. That's all.
I support that, Phil. I have a license plate that says buy local, by the way.
Yeah.
We won't talk about that. Your Worship, I have a nephew that works for Nova Scotia Light and Power, and they had the big meeting and everything, and EMRA, the Nova Scotia Power, they've got it that they're looking at, laying everybody off. I mean everybody, and privatizing and getting other companies from Maine, New Brunswick, or wherever. So I think we have to be a little bit more protective. I mean, the reason why we're in this bind, I would like to think, that it's only because of the Cameron government of that day. When they made a profit of $54 million that year, they sold Nova Scotia Light and Power after making $54 million. So here we are today, and they guaranteed Nova Scotia Power that they would make a profit, guaranteed them a profit. And that's why our rates are as they are. Now they want more and more and more. In order to do that, they want to break all the contracts, do everything they can to lower wages, and only call them in on an ad-need basis. Well, that's not fair. That's not right. I think we've got done enough as it is, and it's time to take a stand and let them not take our employees away. They sold us down the road by selling the Power Corporation itself, but let them not be able to sell and get rid of our employees. That's all I'm saying. Phil, Councillor Mooney, that's a good motion. I will be supporting that motion, and I hope my colleagues around the table will support it also. Thank you.
Councillor Lancho?
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, a comment was made. Well, so far, Nova Scotia Power Emera has laid off 80 employees because they're in this cost cutting by the Utility and Review Board to save 27. I think it is to save 27.5 million a year in its operating amount. So there's more basically coming that way. I think the concern that I have with this is it's obviously some saber rattling, shall we say, by Emera, knowing that the Liberal government is starting to look very harsh at Emera. That was an election campaign issue that was brought up in the last election. And I think it's kind of like the fear of God. But for us down here, there are good paying jobs in our community. And most importantly, I can't stress the amount of seniors in this area. We've been blessed with excellent linesmen, excellent maintenance crews who keep this town lit. And it's amazing how quickly, when power is interrupted, they react and we get back. And I think of many of our seniors in this community, and there's a lot of us in this community, seniors who rely on power. Me, I'm a senior, not you, Your Worship. Well,
Are you really?
Yeah, I'm 60, that qualifies. I got my discount at the movie theater the other night. Just saying. Got to get it while you can. Anyway, but the bottom line is that we want to maintain those jobs, but also we want to make sure our residents, the seniors as such, are well looked after, and especially if there's a power interruption. So, Councillor Mooney, great motion, supported 100%.
I do too. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Trade mission to Brazil, Councillor Mooney.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Your Worship. This trade mission happened just after the election, so I move that the town of Yarmouth correspond with the Department of Rural and Economic Development and request an update on results of the latest economic trade mission for Brazil and details on what opportunities were explored that will benefit southwestern Nova Scotia and what new markets or networks were investigated that would serve us as export opportunities for our lobster industry.
So moved. Can I have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you. Do you know what you just seconded?
Yes, I do.
Just kidding.
My trade mission to Brazil.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Killam Properties.
Your Worship, whereas Phil Fraser has close ties to our area and is the CEO of Killam Properties, one of the largest residential property management companies in Canada, I move the town of Yarmouth request that the Waterfront Development Corporation contact Mr. Phil Fraser to begin discussions around the possibility of Killam Properties exploring the feasibility of redeveloping certain properties in the town for residential condominium use, such as portions of Dominion Textile property and surplus schools, such as a former high school.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Just, and Your Worship,
Go ahead.
and Councillor Dennis, if Phil Fraser is from Deerfield, I think he is the largest, from what I understand, the largest residential apartment owner in Canada. Killam's Properties traded on the stock market. He named Killam Properties not because of the Killam name, but because he grew up on the Killam Road in Deerfield. And I think it would be a great opportunity to let Mr. Fraser come back to his hometown and maybe give us a helping hand. So I think he has the expertise. I know you've had concerns over the high school property and some of our surplus buildings that have been turned back over to us or will be from the regional school board. But I think if Mr. Fraser could help us or have any suggestions, I think it would be a great opportunity for the town of Yarmouth, Your Worship.
Okay. Councillor Dennis?
I think it's a great idea. I just have one question, Councillor. You say about the Dominion Textile property. Well, that's on the water, so what about climate change?
That's something
That'd be part of it. Go ahead.
I know Mr. Fraser has numerous properties right across Canada, and he has some on the Halifax waterfront, so they have their climate change plans in Halifax and other areas. So I think he knows the conditions and what they're looking for. He's built this company not for the next few years, but for 100 years down the road.
Okay.
So I think he would have all those considerations
Okay.
and have them looked after.
Thanks.
Thanks. Okay. Any more discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Fracking moratorium. Man, I don't know enough about fracking, but go ahead.
Your Worship, in light of our property that we own for Lake George and the support of our water system, I move the Town Council send a letter to the Minister of Natural Resources, Minister of Environment, Minister of Rural and Economic Development, and all other relevant provincial departments stating the Town of Yarmouth supports a continued moratorium on hydraulic fracturing or fracking anywhere in Nova Scotia in light of potential long-term damage such activities can have on precious groundwater resources in our environment.
So moved and seconded. Discussion. Councillor Dawes?
Thank you, Your Worship. That is a very good point. But also our colleagues on the councils of the municipality of the District of Yarmouth and Argyll are open to and willing to look further into hydraulic and non-hydraulic fracturing with us together, along with the effects this may or may not have on our environment. We would then, all together, if we looked at this together, sat down, we would then be in a position to address any possible issues in a combined and stronger voice. I would therefore like to amend the motion that our mayor and staff contact and engage our municipal partners before sending the letters of request, and consult with the geologist familiar with our reason as to whether we would even be considered a candidate for hydraulic or non-hydraulic fracturing.
Okay, now I don't know how that works. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
I agree with them. I'm just saying, we should, instead of just send one letter, we should sit down with our neighboring units.
Want to do that in a separate motion?
Sure, okay.
So are we,
Fine, you go
are we
one, I'll do
approving
number
this
two.
one, or are we,
Question?
we're gonna approve this one? And then do another one? Okay, all right. So all those in favor on this motion by Councillor Mooney? All those in favor, aye. Contrary? Okay, motion carried.
I don't know if I should say nay, because we are then giving you two directions, are we not?
It's already passed.
Yes.
But you can.
Well, whether I said, even with just one nay, it would have passed anyway. I am asking for clarification. That's all.
Okay, okay.
That's all, because I
So-
don't know.
So your motion, you want to do a second motion,
Okay.
okay, which is to contact, I had contact municipal, that's as far as I got.
To contact and engage our municipal partners before sending the letters of request, and to consult with a geologist familiar with our region as to whether we would even be considered a candidate for hydraulic or non-hydraulic fracturing. I took a look, I Googled and I took a look at our bedrock where we are down here. And as far as my trained and untrained eye could see, I also spoke with a semi-geologist here in town. We sit on slate, which is metamorphosized shale.
Yeah.
Shale is sedimentary clay, and it has often has organics in it which produce oil and gases. But because we're on a glacial tilt, all of that has been pressed and pressed and pressed and compressed. It could possibly be that all of the oil and gases have been pressed out, but we don't know that yet. But at any rate, I think that the three of us, the three units, we should all work together on this.
So the
Give it a
motion is,
stronger voice.
okay,
If we need to say no, a triple no is much less to be overlooked than just, no, please. That's all I'm saying.
thank you. Councillor Langeau?
I agree with what the course. My only question is time. That's my big concern. For us to go into see, we're in December now. We're going to get into dialogue. We'll be looking at January, and of course, we're going to be in budgets, so staff is going to be tied up in that. I'm just wondering, but realistically, to me, I think we should send the bloody letter. And if the other people want to chime in, and if we want to send a joint thing later on, so be it. The issue of fracking is very serious, as is the issue of any mineral exploration around our watershed. And as we have talked, previous council dealt with, there is a lithium deposit sitting out there on our watershed, which scares the out of me. And I do know they've been doing some exploratory work around there, and the effect of that on our watershed is very, very serious. And we do need some discussion as to where we are going with mineral exploration, especially with that lithium deposit, which is quite substantial, I understand. So I think we should send the letter, and if the others want to chime in, wonderful. And I think we should have the dialogue, no question. But I'm just looking at the timeline. We'll be lucky if we get the letter and everybody together before February or March. But there's no reason why we couldn't send a joint letter later on. Let's just start introducing the topic and go from there. So I'm not in support of the motion. I mean, I would much rather just see the letter go, and if we're going to do a dialogue, do a dialogue.
But first of all, let me just say this. The motion hasn't been seconded, so if you want to take out before we send the letter, then we could send our letter and then all get together and send one as a group. But that's your choice. That's and he would support that.
That was going to be my comments, Your Worship. And that was going to be my comments also, is we can send our letter, CC Argyle and the municipality, and then we can work on the letter with those guys. But I think we should do ours first, and then do the second one. I have no problem with the motion, except for, before we said in the letter, consult with our other partners. As the chair of the water utility knows, we take this seriously. A couple of years ago, we did the first hydrologist report, I think, in the history of the town of Yarmouth on the back end of Lake George. So we've already done some work. We've checked with the geologists and the hydrologists. We've done some scientific research. We've contacted, I think at that time was John McDonnell, the Minister of Natural Resources at the time. But I support Councillor Dawes' motion, except for that one little insert is before the other municipal units get involved. But I think we have an opportunity to get involved on the other side of the fence.
Yep.
So.
Thank you. Councillor Dawes, go
Well,
ahead.
then we support one another. I'm fine with it.
Okay,
I'm fine with it, as long as we get the message out, and as long as we do end up working together. And if we find out that if we are candidates, because we don't know that yet, then all three of us, if we all send out a letter together in one big roar, we'll be heard.
I'll second
That's
the
all.
motion, Your Worship, with the deletion of the
Okay.
line before.
moved
Fine.
and seconded.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Mariner Center, Councillor Mooney.
Your Worship, this has been put on before the last committee of the whole meeting, so this is from last council meeting that I took it off and put it on this one. And it holds true today as it did then. Whereas there has been considerable discussion in the community about the use, purpose, and mission of the Mariner Center facility, I move the town of Yarmouth engage our partners in the municipality and the Mariner Center Management Board to begin discussions on developing a comprehensive long-term 20-year strategic management plan for future use of land in and around the current facility, and that this planning process take into consideration all possible options, and I reinforce all possible options, and uses such as hotel, casino complex, fully equipped aqua center with Olympic-sized pool, proper ice surface for regulation curling, and a field house to include indoor soccer, track, and walking facilities, among other amenities.
Moved and seconded. All those, discussion.
Thank you, Worship.
Go ahead.
I'm for it. I just have a question. I remember seeing, and not too long ago, I remember seeing an old plan picture of a future plan of the Mariner Center, and that makes me ask: is this not part of the strategic plan, the long-term plan? Is this not part of it?
My first reaction to this was that it's part of our strategic plan, but this is what we're doing in partnership with the municipality.
Okay,
So
all
that
right.
makes the
Thank you.
difference.
Thank you.
Yeah. CAO, go ahead.
Yeah, just for clarification, the plan that you saw was a concept. I don't believe that it was the result of any in-depth discussion or process. It was simply a concept that was developed to kind of show the possibilities for future use of the lands at the center.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I knew that it had to be part of a planned vision, and I thought that was part of this.
Councillor Mooney?
And Your Worship, this, and a little later on in the agenda under 11A, Agricultural Society request for meeting, that a letter of invitation be sent to the Municipality of Yarmouth Agricultural Society and the Management Center Mariners Board for direction to discuss mutual concerns. My motion encompasses all user groups, so I think it's a good motion. I think it's in the long-term viability of the facility and our community, not only residents of the town, but residents of Argyle and the municipality of Yarmouth. So I think it encompasses everybody, and it's not going to be one of these knee-jerk reaction meetings. I think this is going to have to be a long, thought-out process. This is not going to be something that's done in 1 or 2 months. That building's been there for over 10 years now, and there's still lots of time for potential and new amenities in the building. I think this motion will just put a little added emphasis on what we have to do out at there, one of our signature attractions in the town of Yarmouth.
I think it's exciting myself. It really is.
Question.
Okay, question's been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Tourism Task Force, Councillor Mooney.
Your worship, thank you. I thought it was all done. Tourism Task Force there's been numerous discussion around the community about the Tourism Task Force, and I'm kind of, even being somewhat on the inside, I'm kind of at a little loss sometimes in explaining the mandate, and I think it'll be a good exercise for the task force too. I move that council request representatives of the Tourism Task Force appointed in April 2013 to appear before council or councils to give a comprehensive update of their activities to date, report on progress that has been made, provide a full accounting of disbursements of the money the task force was allotted in developing tourism products, as well as give clarification and mandate and reporting structure of the task force and how exactly the group is providing assistance and advice to potential tourism operators.
Moved and seconded. Do what? Because I can answer the questions right
No,
now.
I think
It's going to be me.
it's good. Well, and I think I know you've had help on the task force, but I'd like to see almost a town hall kind of atmosphere. Not as big as all hands on deck, because you can't get as big as that, Your Worship. You know that.
Don't even.
No, but I think there's groups, and I think there's groups
Okay.
that have letters that have got accepted for funding, but there's others that haven't.
Yeah.
So maybe if we have somebody from the tourism sector to see what they can do to build up their portfolio or their business initiative and see how they can build it up to government agencies, I think it'll be a good exercise, not only for accountability and a clear vision on what's been done, but also help for future development projects, because hopefully in the next month or two, I'm going to bring a motion forward that we move this tourism task force to maybe do a second year and a third year, because I think 1 year is not in the best interest of this community. I think it should be continued on.
Councillor Dennis?
I think this is a great idea too, Mayor Mood, because there's a lot of people out there that feel that we're not being transparent, and they're wondering where the money has gone, even though I know it hasn't been spent
It
yet.
hasn't been gone. Yeah, exactly.
But,
It's not gone anywhere.
so it will just clarify a lot of things
Yep.
for people.
Okay. Councillor McIsaac?
Thank you, Your Worship. Now, this report, you'll be bringing it to council at a council meeting or a committee of the whole meeting? Is that what a committee of the whole meeting would be?
Committee of the Whole's fine, doesn't?
Yeah, either or, whichever you prefer, Your Worship. It would be, you're going to be bringing the information, the
Yeah.
financials and all the other good stuff, the way I read it here, so. And there's going to be people invited, is that, I take it, or is it?
Invited, and with the streamlining now, they can watch online or
Yeah, because it doesn't say that here.
even an outline. I think Your Worship has been.
Go ahead, turn your light on.
I think Your Worship's been in enough public forums and has done enough activities where there's public participation that she'll probably provide paper and do the whole thing with a PowerPoint. And I'm not telling you how you're going to do it, but maybe PowerPoint would be nice. But people just, and people, I've had questions about different proposals, and I haven't had answers, and I basically have the concept of what the Tourism Task Force mandate is, but
That's right.
how they were graded and how other things happened, I don't have firsthand information on that. So I think it'd be a good exercise, and I think it's not only for this year, but I'd like to see us talk with the Minister of Tourism to do this as a 2 or 3 year project. So, and I think, Your Worship, I think you would agree with that.
I would agree. I just want to let you know, it won't be in the next month.
Okay, that's all,
And I'm
you know,
just
as long as
gonna-
it's,
I'll just say this, because people, very quickly, people are asking about the money, and I keep getting those questions too, but it hasn't been spent.
Yeah.
Because we have to send out letters of offer, so we just accepted, or
Yeah.
just said yes to a bunch of the proposals, so people think $1 million is out there, and it isn't. So it's a good question, and it'll clear up a lot.
and I think by the end of the whole process, Your Worship, I bet you there won't be, the $1 million won't be all spent either.
No, might not be. But that, when I come in, it'll explain where it has to be spent, because it's
Yeah, okay.
divided in half and stuff. Okay, so the
Thank you.
motion's on the floor.
But anyway, Your
Oh,
Worship,
sorry,
just, no,
Counselor.
sorry, just let me finish up there. You were volunteered to take this to task, and I'm glad that you did. And it's a learning curve for yourself, Your Worship. It's also a learning curve for us.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see how you progressed and your committee, and it'll be interesting to see where you are and the people that are going to receive whatever funding there is, if that can be let out. And it'll be just an interesting exercise, and it'd be good for the public to know that, yes, there was money given, and here it is, and everything is just right up front. So thank you, Your Worship, and I look forward to it whenever it's convenient for you.
Whenever's convenient is when we're allowed to list those people, only because they have to sign those offers of... Yeah, yep. Okay, so the motion's on the floor. Did I have a seconder? Yes, second. Had a seconder. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Promotional material, Councillor Mooney.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question, and I think I almost can combine H and I, which is a Canamed, which we got a very nice letter back from the company out west. But I'm just wondering what we do as a community for information that we send to companies or individuals that are interested in coming to southwestern Nova Scotia. Do we have a standard package? Do we custom make a package for them? Do we go from scratch? Do we...
Remember we sat down back there and we started that prospectus meeting?
Yes.
That never got finished?
Yes.
That's what we need, I'll let the CAO speak to it, but we don't have anything. We don't have
No.
anything, but we need a package desperately.
You know, I think if we can develop something, I don't know if we need a motion right now, and I'll think of a motion between now and next committee of the whole. But maybe I'll make a motion that staff and related agencies put together a package for promotional material for the town of Yarmouth.
Is that a motion for now?
Motion for now.
Okay. Can I have a seconder? Yeah, we need a motion.
And
Definitely. I have a lot of that information.
yes, and I think the
Yeah.
timeline is, no. It's not going to be a short timeline because I almost want to make it in when the Wrens get up and going. So I'm looking at the April. They're going to have some input. We'll be talking to YASTA and other related agencies, probably CBDC, ACOA, Department of Economic Development, you know, all our community groups, youth groups. So it's not going to be a timeline. I'm not going to put the timeline on the Deputy Mayor because I know it's not something that you can do in a month or two. It's going to take a longer thought-out process, and I know if you're going after a company or if you're going after a professional, you know, a medical professional, the packages have to be tailor-made for that situation. I know you can't do one straight package for everybody, but I think you can do a basic package and then do some add-ons. So I think with staff and related agencies, I think we can do something, and let's get our name out there. Like with the Canamed one, I think it'd almost be a great opportunity to invite the Canamed people here to look at our area.
So yeah, I'm with you, Jim. So that motion's on the floor. I'm going to dig up because I know you did some work for the hospital and stuff like that, and I think we rounded up quite a bit of information.
And
So
we have enough
whatever.
video, we have enough video
Yeah.
people and photographers.
Yeah,
and
that's
stuff.
all out there.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor that staff be directed to do a promotional package. Yes, for the town of Yarmouth. Okay. Do you have anything to say to that? Would you like to speak to that? You good? You sure? Okay. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried.
And I think, Your Worship, I is encapsulated in H. They came together, so
Okay,
we can bypass that.
good. Nelson Mandela Day, Councillor Dennis. Go ahead.
Just say a little something on this. This was brought up by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities to ask members to pass resolutions recognizing July 18th as Nelson Mandela Day in their community. So on this day, citizens are encouraged to devote 67 minutes of their time to helping others in recognition of 67 years Mr. Mandela dedicated to public service. So my motion is that the town of Yarmouth recognize July 18th as Nelson Mandela Day.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. I think the Premier went too, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
That is amazing.
And also, I didn't bring it with me, but a lady donated a guest book, and she would like the mayor and councilors to sign it. She wants to stay anonymous. And then she would like it set maybe at the YMCA or somewhere. I haven't called them to find out if it was okay.
What's
So
the name?
She's not allowed to say. We could leave it at town hall or wherever, and people could come in and sign it.
We did it for the Queen's
Jubilee.
Jubilee.
Okay,
And we've done it a couple other times, so I think probably Town Hall might be the best place for that.
okay,
I
yeah.
was teasing about what's her name.
Oh, okay.
I know what anonymous means. Okay, so good. All right, cystic fibrosis drug, you're still on, Councillor Dennis.
Okay, cystic fibrosis. There are about 4,000 people in Canada suffering from CF and approximately 120 with the gene G551D. There's about 5 people in Nova Scotia which need the drug Kalydeco but can't afford it. The cost is around $300,000 a year, which is $400 a pill, and they have to take 2 a day. And the drug Kalydeco can help repair their lungs and help with weight gain and give them a better life. So my motion is that correspondence be sent to the Prime Minister, Premier, or MLA, MP, and Minister of Health to help fight to lower the price tag on the drug Kalydeco for cystic fibrosis sufferers in Canada.
So moved, second by Councillor Mooney.
And
Councillor,
your
you wanna
worship,
speak?
I think I came just a touch before Councillor Dawes, but I was watching did you watch the 6 o'clock news tonight?
No.
I think the province of Alberta is negotiating with the manufacturer of the drug, and I think they're negotiating on behalf of all the provinces to get the price lowered.
Good.
They're doing the negotiation and pricing, and the Health Minister, Leo Glavine, is waiting for the end result of those negotiations. If not, I think in January, he is looking into the possibility and has directed staff. I believe there's 8 such people in Nova Scotia that are in requirement of the drug, and he's looking for this government to find a solution for the situation, and he thinks there might be a funding opportunity in January, February.
Great.
So, it was a lead, I think it was a second lead story on the news tonight.
Okay.
So the motion as it is has Prime Minister, MLA, and MP. Can we do a friendly amendment and put Minister of Health in there? Is that a
Yes.
decent idea?
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
agree with
I
that?
put him in mine. He wasn't on
I
that one.
got it. Okay, so the motion's on the floor. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Salt Seeps Travel Show, Councillor Dennis.
Saltscapes Travel Show, my motion is that the town of Yarmouth participate in the 2014 Saltscapes Travel Show. Last year we went, and Councillor Langell and Councillor McIsaac went, and we have to have our form in by December 17th to get the early bird rate. Which is $12.75. 10 by 10. They sent me out 2 rates, so it's possibly, there's one that's $12.75 or $11.95, and I don't, they sent me out 2 pages.
Okay, we want the $11.95.
Okay. So $11.95. Okay.
So are you're asking for the, what was it, $12.75? You're asking for the $12.75. That's what you're asking for? Is that the question? Councillor Mooney?
Your worship, I know we've been partners with YASTA and some other organizations, so is this just the town of Yarmouth booth, or we're going to be in conjunction with anybody else?
This is going to be the town of Yarmouth booth, because I don't believe at this time that YASDO will be attending.
Yep.
If they get funding, more than likely they will, but they don't have the funding to go.
Good.
Because of one of our partners was less by $35,000, so it leaves us without money.
Okay.
So if they are going to, they still are going to do they just had to figure out where they get the best bang for their buck. So they're still going to do the AAA travel show, the Boston Globe and Ottawa.
Thank you. You're still on, Councillor Mooney, if you want.
I'll let Councillor Lange go, I'm thinking.
Okay, Councillor Lancho?
Wow. Kind of caught off guard. I'm kind of wondering about priorities, Councillor Dennis, you know, with YASDA, because I'm looking at the bang for the buck here. I know I know even a few years back, Councillor Dawes, you were even there before you were a councillor, if I remember one of our shows there. Maybe I'm wrong, at Saltscape. Two, 3 times. The Saltscape show was incredible because you are meeting close to 10,000 people in short order. I mean, we do a lot of work at that show. It's probably one of the richest opportunities we'll have to promote the community. To be honest with you, I question the validity of these other shows in Toronto or in Maine or wherever. I mean, to me, I'd like to get people down here from Halifax. As Patrick Sullivan, the chair of the Nova Scotia Tourism Agency, said, his job is to get people to Nova Scotia. Our job is to get them to Yarmouth. So for us we're kind of duplicating the NSTA initiatives by going to these shows outside of the area. It's nice to have that presence. But I'm thinking bang for the buck. There's more bang for the buck, as far as I'm concerned, in the Saltscape show, because we've actually seen valid proof in that, because we've had people who come back year after year. I was down there. We came down there. It's one heck of an investment. I'm concerned if we're only alone, because we need definitely a good presence there. One booth doesn't cut it. Our first year we had a booth, and it doesn't cut it. You need a double booth at the very least. I'm hoping that maybe we would consider a double booth. I know it's expensive. It's in our next fiscal year, but with the idea of maybe we get another partner in place, because one booth, these things are only, what, 10 by 8. You need a double to give you the area that we need, because last year, Councillor Dennis did an absolutely beautiful job setting up the booth. It was gorgeous, well received, and we were jam-packed for the entire time. We were probably one of the most popular booths at the show. So I would like to recommend we should, for early bird, go in for a double booth. I know the CEO is going to choke in his water here. Go in for a double booth with the idea that if maybe YASDA comes on board, we can always give them that second booth, or if there's another partner that wants to come on board, we can give them the second booth. But let's get the booth booked, if you know what I mean, and then with the idea that somebody will come in. I'm kind of hoping YASDA will reconsider that, and that they will come on board too.
What if they don't? Do we eat the...
We'll be eating a double booth, which we could use. I'll be honest.
That's just a question.
Yeah, to be honest, Your Worship, to be honest with the show, I believe last year, Sandy, we had a triple booth. I think if you looked at YASDA the town, there were 2, 3 booths. We had a triple. Really, a double for our town would be a perfect size. Antigonish, I know one year had 6 booths, and I found it was way too big. But a double booth works very, very nicely, and that would be the presence. We do have the backdrop this year, Your Worship. The backdrop's all made. We did that last year, so that expense is not going to be there. And Councillor Dennis is an artist when it comes to putting it together. So I think we'll be in good shape. So I'd like to recommend maybe amending that, or maybe a friendly amendment to go for 2 booths at the show, with the intent that maybe somebody will come forth to take the second booth. And if not, we'll just use it.
So the motion now, if we agree to the amendment, is that the town of Yarmouth participate in the 2014 Saltscape Travel Show with a double booth.
Yep.
Okay. Is anybody opposed to that amendment?
Well, yes and no. If one table is not enough, then if you do find someone to take that second table, the second booth, then we're going to end up with one anyway.
No.
I have to sit on my hands, or I'm going to whack
It's
this.
the presence. It's the presence of this area.
It is, yeah.
The volume of the area, so it doubles
Yes.
our presence, yes.
And like if YASDA comes, I mean, basically they just gave out brochures and stuff where we actually had kippers, which I hope that we get again. And so it made our booth really busy.
Okay.
So we need a lot more room.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to point, Your Worship, 1 year, and CEO can correct me, but 1 year we went before YASDA got involved. We were actually in partnership with the Municipality District of Yarmouth. I believe in the first year, they supported a booth, so we kind of had like a Yarmouth booth presence there as well. But as far as I'm concerned, we need that double presence because that gives us that little bit of that wow factor and also gives people a chance to come in behind and talk to you. Yeah.
Here, John, you can get something together, right?
Yeah.
I said, if we get a double booth, we can do something with YASTA.
I can't speak on council behalf, but it's my understanding that YASTA was already to be there with 3 booths.
Okay.
I talked to Julie today.
She's going south, she's going US,
She's going south.
stateside.
She was,
Double booth and talk to her.
Yeah.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor for
Double
the
booth.
double booth, okay?
Question.
Any more discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Committee of the Whole, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Dennis, would you,
Oh.
you're just your light.
oh,
It's okay, you had it on for so long. It's all good.
Your partner's next to you, don't worry about me.
Okay, Deputy?
Number one, I move that a grant be awarded to the Coal Shed Music Festival for the cost of a sound system for a period not to exceed 2 weeks for their annual festival.
So moved. Second by Councillor McIsaac. Discussion, questions been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried.
Number two, I move that the list of council representatives on committees be approved as circulated.
Seconded. Any discussion? Questions been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried.
I move that council initiate an entrepreneurs forum to be held in January, which will include entrepreneurs, landlords, mentors, and other partners.
So moved. Seconded. Any discussion? Questions been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried.
I move that the recommendation of the Traffic Authority regarding linking trails be sent to the Trails Association with our encouragement that they may want to pursue the town engineer's suggestion that consideration be given to the connection of the 2 trails outside of the town boundaries as a viable option, and that copies be sent to the Department of Natural Resources and the Minister of Transportation.
Moved. Seconded by Councillor McIsaac. Discussion? Questions been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried.
Number 5, I move that the town of Yarmouth request the Mariner Center Management Board to ask for the removal of the trailer from the property.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
Discussion.
I have a,
Your Worship.
yeah. I want to speak to that too. Councillor
Thank
Mooney's
you.
on.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Second only to Councillor Dennis.
Yeah, right on. Thank you. I'm the one that made this motion, Worship,
Yes.
and there's been, like I said in the previous motion, there's been a considerable discussion around the community about the trailer and the Agricultural Society and the role that they play out there. And I truly believe that the Mariner Center Management Board has our best interests at heart. And I think in light of what has happened, there's been great discussion around the community. I have no problem either tabling this, I have no problem. I know there's going to be discussion with the Agricultural Society, and with my motion, it brings in all users of the facility. So let's, for the sake of a month or two, I know they're going to meet in January or February sometimes. For a month, I have no problem with this. I'll still get beat up about it, but, I've been beat up about bigger things than this before, so I have no problem voting against it. And I know, Councillor McIsaac's probably going to support the motion. I made the motion, but basically it was for discussion. A concern was brought. I got the discussion, but there was a concern brought to me by a citizen that they said there wasn't a contract in place for the trailer to be on the park. So that's on the table now. That's being discussed. That's being looked at by the management board. It's in front of the Agricultural Society or the Exhibition Society, whoever owns the trailer. They're aware of the problem now. They're aware of our concerns. There's going to be a meeting of the mind, so as much energy went into the Facebook discussion, let's put that energy around a board table and let's get the best interests of the community put forward. So, you know, it was more for discussion purposes to look at it. So, you know, yeah.
Well, you know what? I gotta say this. Councillor Mooney, you just said, if as much energy was put into, okay, as was on Facebook, but you know what we could really use at the table is a whole lot of facts. Because I honestly, and I say this with as much respect as I can muster, but I think everybody got beat up over it. The intention was not to hurt anybody. We did not say we're going to take the trailer and move it. We don't have that right. We don't have that power. We work with a board. We work with municipal units. So I didn't read Facebook. I just heard about it. I just stay away because it's detrimental. It's not just detrimental. If there were a whole lot of facts posted, it would be really, really good. But unfortunately, now tonight, because of those comments, nah. My name's Pam, and I'm your target. Go ahead, Councillor Langeau.
Thank you, Worship. I kind of like this motion. I'm going to get beat up too on this one. I agree with the number one. It's not our business. I mean, this motion is simply asking the Mariner Center to look into it, and I've had concerns about that as well. Frankly, it's not within our realm to tell anybody to do anything with a vehicle. The comments that I have been getting from residents are the famous "how come" comments. You know, the famous "how come." How come this is there? What's the reason for it? How come they're not paying this, not paying that? I agree with Councillor Mooney, but I really think the motion should read that we ask the Mariners Board to review the situation of the trailer. In other words, we put a request and ask them to review it to make sure the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, because I'm like Mayor Mood here. This is sketchy, and more sketchy. We just don't have a lot of information. It's a he said, she said. There were some honorable gentlemen that agreed to something some time ago, and who knows, they're probably all dead by now. I don't know. We don't know anything. We don't know what the facts were, and there's some very vicious letters out there. And I agree with you, Your Worship, I don't think it was anyone's intent to hurt anyone. It was just, we have to do due diligence. I mean, when you suddenly are being told that there is a trailer being on a property that's not, is it legal, for example? Can you put a trailer there? Do we have trailer parks? What's the parameter? In the agreement, was it for ad infinitum? I don't know the answer. Who's paying the power bill? Who pays the water bill? That's my interest. No, I understand, for as Chair of Water Utility, that's being paid for by the taxpayers, the Mariner Center. They're looked after they're hooked up to the same water line. Well, I've been asked, is that fair? You know, can I hook my water up to the Mariner Center or whatever, you know? These are little questions that are being asked. And I mean, doing due diligence as council, I think we've every right to bring our residents' concerns forth, and I commend you, Councillor Mooney, for that. But I really think, and I think the Mariners Board got the message, somebody's got to look into it. Just make sure that everything's in the up and up and the transparency is there. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is not a new issue, and it's not a new issue to the CAO. And if the CAO can recall, myself and Councillor McKenzie came and seen him here a couple of years ago and asked him the question about who's paying the power bill. Do they have a contract out at the Mariner Center for the trailer? The power is hooked up direct from the Mariner Center, right direct to the trailer. Since that was said, the manager, I don't know how long ago, advised them when they came and they want to put dehumidifiers and different stuff in their trailer, that they would have to get their own connection of their own power. So they did do that with some discussion over it, I guess. But the trailer's been there. I've read some of the information that was sent out by the Agricultural Society, by Wayne Hamilton and Rose Lady, whoever, these people. committee members are, whoever they are. Anyway, what concerns me, as not only as a counselor but as a citizen and as a taxpayer, and as a business person, a former business person that had dealings with the town of Yarmouth, and I wanted to put, and I did put, a trailer and a mobile vehicle on town land, and I had to go through the process of doing that. I had to get permits. I had to go through public health. I had to go through the planning committee, and I had to pay for a permit to park there. I also had to pay for water, and I had to pay for electricity, like everybody else in the town of Yarmouth that want to do business in the town of Yarmouth have to do that. Now, the Agricultural Society is a great society. It's been in the town of Yarmouth for, if you read their email, for 50 or 100 years, 100 plus. But the problem with the Agricultural Society, from what I'm reading, is that I don't think they realize that they sold the facility twice to the town of Yarmouth. Once wasn't enough, we bought it twice. And all they are now is a tenant at 1 year at a time. Now, facts are facts. This is the truth. And it has to be said. That's what they are. And when you're a tenant and you come to rent the facility, even though you've been renting it for all that time, this is a new facility that's been there for 10 years. Nothing remains the same it doesn't around this council. It changes. People's ideas changes, the way they do business changes, and all I'm suggesting is that the trailer has been there for I don't know how long. They seem to think that they paid their dues, paid their rent by then just being there and mowing the grass and renting the facility once a year. This is in the email. I say I can't do that, or any other business can't do that. A mobile business or a trailer, like fish and chip trailer, or any other kind of trailer in town of Yarmouth, is only good for 9 months. Then you have to renegotiate and do it again. Now, the trailer's been out there used as an office. Well, that's great. That's great. But I'd like to know from the CEO, is there a deal with the Agricultural Society from way back when? Is there a document, or is there a verbal agreement? Verbal agreements, I don't know what it means. That would have to be asked to the solicitor. I mean, and the people that made that verbal agreement, I don't know, they're still on planet Earth. I don't know where they are. I mean, it's just hearsay, and I'm not a lawyer, but I mean, I could say that I had agreement with whoever. You got to have documentation, I think. That's what we run by here in the town office, is documentation. In order to do anything, get anything, sign it's the same way, building permits are the same way. There's no difference. As I say, it's a great society, but you know what? They've been there for I don't know how long. I don't know why they went there as long as they did, and why they're still there with nobody checking them. Is it my fault or anybody else's fault that they bring this up? No, it isn't. Somebody has to do their due diligence. Maybe they're not happy, but it's not my fault they're not happy. I'm doing what we're supposed to do. And if people out there in Facebook land want to write all they want, I don't care. Press can write whatever they want, I don't care either. It doesn't make a bit of difference to me. I'm doing what I feel is the best thing to do for our community. And look, my hat's off to them. They got away with it for 10 years. I don't know whose fault it is. Is it the CAO's fault for not picking it up? The previous one and this one? Is it the municipal unit's fault because they didn't jump all over it? I don't know. But what I want to know, is there any documentation that gives them the right to stay there without paying water bills? Now they pay electricity, water and sewer, and no rent, no nothing. Is there an agreement? And if there isn't, why are they still there, and why am I having this conversation? That's my question to the CEO. And I hate to put you on the spot, but it is what it is.
Do you remember the question?
Thank you. The question is there an agreement in place? Aside from the email that we all received today about a unwritten agreement between honorable persons, I've been unable to find anything on record in our files that indicates why the trailer is there. and Linda's assisted me with that as well. I've talked to Gil at Mariner Center, and he has no recollection, no records on how it came to be. I've been involved in one capacity or another for all except for about 2 years of the history of Mariner Center, and it was during that time that the trailer was placed there originally. So I don't have an answer for you. As far as the nature of any agreement or why it is there, but I can tell you I've been unable to find anything in writing that indicates that it was permitted by the town.
I shut it off, Your Worship. So let me ask you one more question, CAO or our solicitor. Now, I can understand why the councillor is having second thoughts of just maybe tabling or whatever, but I'd like for him to reconsider this and maybe reword it or something. But in a case like this, and that's what it is, we have a trailer that's passed under the radar. It's been neglected for whatever reasons. I don't know if that's the right words to use, but it's been there. It's been there for the last, I don't know how many years I drove by and seen it. We don't have any agreement, we don't have anything in writing or anything other than an email that was sent. I could write all kinds of emails and send emails. If that's what it takes to get me to put something on the town's land, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to put up 3 or 4 barns, 3 or 4 sheds on my property. See, you know how long it would take for the town of Yarmouth to come down and put a halt to it and haul them away and charge me and fine me? Wouldn't take long. They'd be dragging them away at my cost. So what I'm saying is, what is the remedy and what are we going to do to rectify the trailer being out there? I mean, there's no records. We haven't got anything. You just said there's nothing, can't find anything. You can't haul anything out of a box or out of your back pocket. It's either there or not there. So I'm asking, what do we do? Do we say, well, you can stay there another 3 months, another 6 months till the weather warms up? Or do we enter into negotiations? Is it a permitted use to have that trailer out there? I know some trailers, some home trailers are not allowed, but I don't know. If it was asked, I had asked you before, if it was a permitted use, you were going to check with Arthur. Did you remember to check with Arthur? Or maybe, past 2 years, and I know you have because of the boat scheduling and all the other good stuff that's been going on in the town of Yarmouth. So what do we do?
Are you a busy man?
No, I know he's a
That
busy
was the
man.
question.
No, I said I know he's a busy man.
Yes.
But, if we got nothing there in writing or anything, what's our recourse? What do we do? Do we sit down and meet with these people and say, well, okay, we can't find anything, but we've been there 150 years. We've contributed every time we rent the facility once a year. Well, fine, a lot of other people that rent the facility contribute. I'm not saying that they're not a good organization. I keep repeating it, they are. But what do we do? Do we call a big general meeting just because their trailer's there and they don't have a permit and we don't think they should be there, or I don't think they should be there? Am I right or wrong? I don't know. You tell me. If it's anybody else that had their land, their trailers on there, we wouldn't allow it.
Go ahead.
Okay,
CAO?
thank you. I've talked to our development officer. There's no permit ever been issued or applied for the trailer. I've talked to our town engineer. He was unaware of the sewer connection or the water connection. So they don't have a development permit. The property is Mariner Center. They would have to apply.
Mariner Center would have to apply.
Yeah.
Mariner Center.
Right.
As the-
Property owner has to apply. I can't develop something on your property without you signing the permit. So if they're in violation, it is Mariner Center that's in violation.
Okay, so,
Your Worship,
Deputy Mayor?
as a member of council, I just want to say that I moved the motion, but I'm going to vote against the motion based on not just the discussion tonight by some of us, but by all the activity that's surrounding the activity associated with the Agricultural Society. So it's my intention to vote, when you call the vote, I'm going to vote nay.
okay, thank you. You can turn your light. Oh, well, I guess you're going to need it later anyway. Okay. Counselor Dawes?
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree. If this can be tabled, can we table this? Can we? Because I agree on the tabling. I agree with due diligence. I agree with details, facts, which we did not have at the Committee of the Whole. That was the reason why I voted against it in the first place when it was first introduced at the Committee of the Whole. And we are offered details and more facts. And if I didn't see that Councillor Dennis had added it to our agenda, I was going to make a motion that we do, just as our neighbors, the municipality, did take the time to sit down and listen to the Agricultural Society. I believe we owe it to everyone, to them and to everyone that's involved, and that it affects. So if we can't table it, I don't know. That was going to be my question, but I forgot because.
Deputy Mayor?
The simplest thing is to vote against the motion and have it finished, and then we'll restart whatever we need to do in the future. If that's my intention.
Doesn't matter to me.
Can that be done?
Okay, so the motion is on the table that the town of Yarmouth request the Mariner Center Management Board to ask for the removal of the trailer from the property. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So, let me get this straight. So if we vote against the motion, as Deputy Mayor is suggesting, then the matter basically dies. Because by turning it down, the matter dies. If you say, no, it's dead, the issue's dead. Is that my understanding? Am I correct? Because there's no other motion. So if this motion goes, are we sending a signal that we don't really care about the trailer? Because I've got a concern about it. A huge concern, and that's what I'm wondering. I just want to make sure I understand, because Deputy Mayor is saying we should vote against it. So,
All right.
so if I vote against it, am I saying to people who express concern to me that we don't care about the trailer?
I
Go ahead.
take in, like, meeting with the municipality and the Agricultural Society to discuss mutual concerns.
It's a concern, but to some people, I can't speak for anybody, but to some people, it may be two separate things. I mean, there's a trailer on the property without permits or whatever it is. That's one issue. The other issue is that we need to have discussions. So do we have those discussions under your motion that's upcoming? And then say to council, as Councillor Mooney said, to table it, and then it's still alive, and we're not sending that message out, because we do care. I mean, Councillor Langell?
Well, that's why I was raising the issue. I was a little confused with Deputy Mayor's thoughts process, because I'm hearing that we've got an illegal trailer parked on land that we kind of are involved with partnership. So we, in essence, are allowing something happened a few minutes ago. On another matter, we're just saying we have to be transparent. We have to show that, that everything's in the up and up. We're not going to break any bylaws. We spent, I don't know how long, on mod houses and where they're going to make sure that all the bylaws and the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And we haven't even put the darn things anywhere yet. Now we have a trailer that's been there for eons, been there for bloody eons, and we're saying, okay, that's fine. Well, I have a real problem with it. I see the intent of this motion is simply to ask the Mariner Center to do something. Now, it's their land, it's their property. They could go tell us to forget it. We're happy as can be. It can stay there forever, and we're going to put lights on it. No problem. But I mean, we're just a partner in the Mariner Center. We're just one of a partner. So, I mean, their board runs the operation. We are not in any position to tell them what to do. They are a board that's made up of partnerships of the other municipal units. So it's a 50-50. We can write all the letters we want, but they could ignore us. So I feel I'm going to support the motion. I feel just get it done, send it to the Mariner Center. If the Mariner Center want to deal with it, that's fine. But at least they've got the direction.
I'm ready to vote for it. I'll vote on the motion right now.
Okay. That the town of Yarmouth requests the Mariner Center Board to ask for removal of the trailer from the property. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Nay. Four to three. Okay, that one's defeated. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion, Your Worship, that the Town of Yarmouth write to the Mariners Centre Board requesting them to review the status of a trailer that is on their property to make sure that it is adhering to all of the regulations and bylaws of the Town of Yarmouth.
Moved and seconded. Did you want to speak to that, Deputy? Or you're, okay? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Okay. Well, it doesn't remove what it places in the proper place. Yes. Okay. All right. Motion carried.
Could not all these questions, because we keep coming up with new questions all the time, could these not all come up when we sit down and talk with them?
I think they've got them written down.
Thank you, I've just been told.
2 nays. No, it's a good, they're all good questions. Okay, Deputy Mayor, you're on.
Number 6, that the town of Yarmouth enter into discussions with the municipality of Yarmouth with regard to the future of a youth council. I move.
Second. Moved and seconded.
Question?
Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried.
I move that Mr. Muse and Mr. Sullivan be appointed as building inspectors in our town of Yarmouth.
Moved and seconded. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye.
And Your
Contrary?
Worship, or maybe the CAO for the public's
Motion carried.
convenience, maybe the CAO can explain the situation on why we had to appoint Mr. Muse and Mr. Sullivan, how it works with our sister municipalities.
Go ahead. CAO?
Thank you, Your Worship. We have an intermunicipal agreement with the Municipality District of Yarmouth, and we are entering one with the District of Argyll, whereby when either party has a situation where they don't have a building inspector due to illness or vacation or what have you, that the participating municipal unit will provide building inspection services at cost to the partner. So at this time, we find ourselves without a building inspector full-time, and the District of Yarmouth has been very gracious in assisting us, and Argyll is, we're going to sign the agreement with them and have the reciprocal arrangement with them.
Councillor Landro?
I hate to be a stickler, Your Worship, but I really have a problem with this motion. This Mr. Muse and Mr. Sullivan. There's some really sketchy muses I know, and I'm just kind of carte blanche here. I really would feel more comfortable if we could put the first names in this motion, because it's kind of just for bookkeeping purposes.
Glenn and John, in that order.
That Mr. Glenn Muse and Mr. John Sullivan be appointed as building inspectors in the town of Yarmouth. Okay? Has it been seconded?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried.
I move that the date for consideration of requests for grants from organizations be Saturday, January the 25th, 2013, at 9:30 a.m.
It'll be 2014.
2014, yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. That's what was written. Councillor Dawes?
Thank you, Your Worship. I only have, I think, 1.5 quick questions. Is that the day where we are going to sit down all day and we're going to decide who gets how much? That's when everyone comes in and does their presentations. Then I would wonder, not every one of those organizations, they're only going to be like 2 months away from their fiscal year ends. Are they going to have close enough numbers to bring to us? Are there going to be approximations that we're going to have to make? Are we going to have to leave buffers?
CAO?
Your Worship, not all not-for-profits follow the same fiscal calendar as the municipality. So some have the January 1st, like the YMCA, for instance, is January 1st. So any time that we do this, it's going to catch catch them mid-year or near the end of a year or near the beginning of a year. So I'm not sure that it will make a lot of difference. The main thing is that we let them know that we are doing the process earlier so that they can get their application in.
I'm fine with that, thank you very much. Those were just two thoughts that. Good, thank you. Okay, so Councillor Dennis, you're up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'll be away that week on business, so I won't be able to attend.
You can video stream and have your form filled out. Good, Councillor McIsaac?
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is for the CAO. It's CAO week. Jeff, I know a few years ago, and I don't know if this still exists or not. I'm sure that it does, but I don't think we've been practicing it to the T. Grants to organizations. We used to look at people that carried a balance on their sheets that we didn't favor as seeing them as needed for grants. Am I correct or am I wrong by saying that? Or you need some time to look this up and perhaps bring it up at the next committee of the whole meeting to give us the information that we need? Because I thought that if organizations looking for grants, if they carried a balance, they didn't qualify for grants. I'm just asking for some clarification. Am I right or am I wrong? I think we all should know if that's the case. I'll wait for your response before I turn my mic off.
Your Worship, I'll get back to council with an answer on that. I know it has been talked about. I was looking for a copy of the bylaw to refer to here. It's not hitting my gaze at the moment, so I'll get back to you with an answer on that. But I know that it has been a question, at least at the table, when
Yes.
organizations present a balance sheet where they have cash cash on hand, cash in reserves, and or are projecting a profit for the year in which they're asking for a grant. I can check our bylaw and see if there's anything specific about that.
And will you be doing that at our next committee of the whole in the new year?
I'll circulate that.
You'll circulate that? Great, thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you. Okay, so the motion's on the floor that the date for consideration of the request for grants from organizations be Saturday, January 25th, 2014, 9:30. Moved and seconded.
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, motion carried. Deputy Mayor?
I move that the town of Yarmouth take a proactive approach to addressing increasing concerns across the province and nationally about the accountability of elected officials and transparency around taxpayer-funded expenses by instructing staff to develop guidelines and processes that will result in all expenses of the mayor and council to be posted publicly online on a quarterly basis starting in the next fiscal year.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried.
I move that a letter of congratulations be sent to Roland Hannum, teacher at the South Centennial School, for being provincially recognized in the teaching field with the Nova Scotia Teachers Union Teachers Make a Difference program.
Moved and seconded. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary?
I
Motion carried.
move that the town of Yarmouth be a gold sponsor for the Modified House project.
So moved, seconded. Councillor McIsaac?
Could you tell the public how much that costs the public for being a gold sponsor, please?
$1,000.
$1,000. Thank you. Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried.
I move that $250 be provided to the Salvation Army Red Kettle Campaign.
Moved, Councillor Mooney seconded that. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried.
I move that correspondence be sent to the Department of Natural Resources with the answers to their questions regarding the problems with deer in the town of Yarmouth.
Second by Councillor McIsaac. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried.
I move that the matter of parking on Main Street during the Christmas parade, as discussed at the Police Advisory Board meeting, be referred to the Traffic Authority, advising it is the preference of council that all parades in the town of Yarmouth follow a similar parking ban/process that is put in place for the Seafest parade.
Moved and seconded. Councillor Mooney?
Your worship, I'll support the motion, but I think at a previous council meeting, did we come up with a date for a parking meeting?
Yeah, when did we put that, Linda, do you remember? I don't know. I got a note last week with 3 or 4 things that we needed dates for, and I did forward them, so we can set that up in the next couple days. Thank you.
Question?
Yep. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried.
I move that the matter of dedicating benches be referred to the Communities in Bloom Committee regarding a policy or procedure for dedications of benches, plaquing, citizens and/or organizations, etc.
So moved, seconded.
Question?
Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Reports for information, occupational health and safety. EMO. EMO, I had a question. Do we have minutes? The minutes that I have attached are from
Yeah, we had
August. Go ahead.
We had a meeting a week ago Tuesday, your worship,
Yeah, I
and
couldn't
the
make that, but I,
CAO from the municipality took the minutes, so
okay.
they may not be circulated yet, but,
All right.
The minutes of the December 3.
are they, we have them, are they circulated? Okay. No?
No. I just
Okay.
didn't know if I had
Yeah.
attached the wrong ones.
Okay, I think they'll be circulated by Harold and the CAO from the
Okay.
municipality.
All right. Mayor's report, I'm going to read that because because it's Christmas. And it'll be quick. No, you need to sit down. I'll wait until you're back.
Point of order, your worship.
Exactly. Well, you have to love the respect that a councillor will get up and leave when the mayor reads a report. And that's fine. We'll read it anyway, the December mayor's report. And it's short. It's wonderful to see the hustle and bustle in Yarmouth Town as the magic of the season is upon us. Stars Road's busy, Milton Fountain is decorated, and Candy Cane Lane has reappeared in Yarmouth South. Christmas music being piped throughout the downtown is bringing smiles to faces thanks to Waterfront Development Corporation. Frost Park, the crowning glory, brings a sense of awe and takes our breath away. Thank you to Ryan's Electrical, Communities in Bloom, Recreation, and Public Works for the countless hours you've put in. Santa came a bit early on a number of fronts, including the ferry issue, where we reached another milestone. The terminal property has been transferred to the town of Yarmouth, and we're working in conjunction with our partners on this front, the municipalities of Yarmouth and Argyll, and we're still on track for May. More great news came in the form of the recent release of the Yarmouth-Portland Fairs, and the response to this has been very positive. I have to, are those posted on the Yarmouth Facebook page, or I think they are, the Town of Yarmouth Facebook page, and the fairs are excellent. Santa knows doctors are always on our list. This past month saw a number of new doctors come in both directly to Yarmouth and to the region in general. A warm welcome is extended to each. I've received many calls from thankful residents who have finally secured doctor services. Doctor recruitment continues, and I'd like to extend a heartfelt thanks to Dr. Casella, Shirley Watson-Poole, and their team for all their work. It's truly making a difference. The work on the Regional Enterprise Network continues as well. The next step is the recruitment of the Board of Directors. So if anyone out there wishes to apply for a position on the Board of Directors, or if you know someone who would be an asset for economic development, the recruitment guide and application are available on the Town of Yarmouth website. And if they're not, they will be shortly. The All Hands on Deck continues. Many of the teams have been set up, and we can expect updates soon from teams including signage, wall murals, the Yarmouth app, customer service, in-memory team, events, and more. Even the idea to have a cannon, which was brought up at the meeting, on the waterfront is almost sealed. In true all-hands fashion, someone made the suggestion, another gathered information, another found the cannon, a local business has stepped up to supply funding, and now they're checking out logistics to make it happen. That's the way it works. If your name is on the list and you've not been contacted by the end of January, please send me an email, and we'll get you back on that list. There's lots going on for the season. Lobster Splash is in full swing. What a tremendous excuse to eat lots of lobster, support local business, and support our local lobster fishery. The Gingerbread House competition took place this week, and I understand there was a record number of entries. Looked like a lot of fun. The parade was beautiful. The gingerbread man is out and about, and the Christmas concerts and more, and sure, there's something for everyone. So I hope everyone gets out and enjoys the season. I was thinking recently that if this season were a Christmas tree, the star on top for me would be the lighting up of the South Playground. Many of us recall the excitement of too many years ago when the St. George Fire Department delivered Santa to the playground. The kids were packed like sardines waiting for his arrival, and the treat bag of chocolate milk and orange and a big candy cane would arrive with Santa. The tree was lit, and screams of hundreds of children would echo through the excitement of South Main Street. Our heartfelt thanks to Diana Adams for saying, "Let's do it again," to Recreation and Mearns for hot chocolate and music, and to Public Works for not only the tree, but the over-the-top and above work that you did. You always come through. The evening was a perfect meeting of old memories and the making of new ones. Oh, and to Santa Claus, or is that Santa Dawes, for her helper and her helpers, thanks for the great decorations. I love community. And so as this year comes to an end, a very Merry Christmas to each of you and the very best 2014. I love how we've come together with renewed purpose this past year. There's much more to do, and we will do it together. I'll close by saying that as we go through this season, let's remember it's not a happy time for everyone. My challenge to each of us is to find that someone in need and do something wonderfully unexpected and unselfish. It'll change 2 lives, theirs and ours, that I promise. May God richly bless each of you and this beautiful town we call home as much as you blessed me this past year. Over and out. Hi, Randy. Questions for committee chairs? Oh, sorry, Councillor Langell, go ahead.
I hate to sound like a broken record, Your Worship. With Prefer, you have made in your mayor's report some comments of all hands on deck. If you recall, about a month ago, I had mentioned that the communities in Bloom, there seems to be an overlap. We are looking at some planning functions in early January. You were going to share me a list.
Okay.
And I'd let, if that's at all possible, or maybe is that group going to be, or if we could just find out what that group is going to be doing so that we don't duplicate.
Yeah, we can do that. I can't give you the list because I just had people call and say, you can't. I gave you my information for the all hands on deck. Don't pass my information on, which is sort of like a, so we can figure out what each group is doing. So for example, that the benches, those types of things, they need to go through you guys. Yeah. I'll give you that whole, I can give you the list of what projects. That'll help. Go ahead.
So, and again,
sorry.
Just, I'm a little confused here. Yeah. So, and I'm trying to get my head around the concept because there's a lot of things happening. Now, do these groups meet as groups? So is it possible that we could know when the groups are meeting in case some of us want, or is the list, what I'm trying to get at, is the list closed?
Is the list closed?
Yeah.
The list is, the whole premise was in community engagement, so that if a group wanted to set up, they could set up. The only thing I asked was that before they do anything, so for example, if I use the benches, before you go out and buy a bench that you want to put at 100 Main Street, you need to engage the town or an employer, somebody, to make sure that that's okay. Because we can't have people just out there doing whatever they want to do, because it needs to fall into line with what we're trying to accomplish as a town. So for your communities in Bloom, if there are people that are going to adopt gardens and things like that, they need to check in with you to make sure this is where, this is how, that type of thing.
Because what I'm, right now, the Communities in Bloom is working on a strategic 5-year plan for the town. Mm-hmm. Our committee has no idea what All Hands on Deck. And I visualize 300 volunteers out there who are doing the same thing we are doing, but we don't know who they are.
Okay.
But they know who we are, and I'm wondering how we can find out, how we can connect with them. Is it possible that we could attend a meeting of these groups, or is that?
Yeah, no, I'm sure you
could
can.
we get a date of their meetings? Because I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, because we had a public engagement session last year where we're working on a strategic 5-year plan for the town with gardens and benches and a lot of the things. And from the snippets I'm reading from All Hands on Deck, some of the stuff that All Hands on Deck is doing is similar to what we're doing. Now, it's a waste of resources for both of us to do the same thing. So my thinking is if this group wants to take over some of the projects that we're doing, our committee would be more than pleased to turn that over, let them do their thing, and then we'll all live happily ever. I just would hate to see both. For example, you mentioned, Your Worship, a town cleanup in your mayor's report, okay, that, or something I've seen going by. Well, we do, Communities in Bloom does a town cleanup every year. So are we going to have 2 town cleanups, or are we all going to work together on the same cleanup? And if we're going to work together on the same cleanup, how do we know who in All Hands on Deck is willing to work with us in the cleanup if we don't know who they are?
Okay, so this is what we do. I get you a list of the different groups that are set up, and whatever ones that you think go with Communities in Bloom, then we match them up. Because what we don't want to happen is what you just said, that 2 groups do it. So for example, weeding and gardening, they're not going to do it until the spring. The teams will get set up. The people that want to do that will get set up. They can be sent to you. I just have to send a mass email and say, whose name, are you okay with me passing on the names? That's all.
Yeah, because right now, for example, Communities in Bloom is planning and I don't want to mean to drag this out, but the public should be aware, we're planning basically a whole fall weekend workshop session in February on gardening. It's a Friday and Saturday. Now, if there are people out there who want to do specific things in gardening and whatever, this would be very useful to them, pruning and that sort of thing. Frankly, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody around the table. I would love to have a list of all of the subcommittees of All Hands on Deck. The Vanguard has it because we know they're the key mover and shaker of the whole thing. So they're public. They're the public. No, but they've been spreading the good word. I mean, I find out about All Hands on Deck from the Vanguard because there's a nice little article in there that says here are some initiatives, and this week I'm reading that. So if the Vanguard can see the information,
But they don't.
I'd just like to know the names. I'd like to make sure, for example, from a heritage.
The names of the committees?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Absolutely, I can
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, like the Heritage Committee, for example, is another example. I believe you had a group that was working on heritage. I thought, that's what somebody said to me. See, I don't know who's doing what. And I'm just thinking from some of the committees that I'm involved in, it would be nice to get everybody working together on the same page.
Okay.
And I think that's the spirit of All Hands on Deck,
It
is to
is.
bring the community together. And
It
some of
is.
us would like to help,
Yes.
but we don't know
Yeah.
how that can happen.
Yeah, so what I have is a list, I have a list of committees with names attached, okay? I have a list of projects that people said they wanted to do with names attached. All the committees aren't set up because some people haven't taken ownership or whatever it is, but that'll happen in the spring with cleanups and weeding and gardening and stuff like that. So there's 2 halves. So yes, I can do that, and the other half is when you need help. When you think, man, we could use some volunteers for this, then I've got a whole slew of people that just said, we will do whatever. But I also have a lot of people whose names are in red that just said, please don't give anybody my information. That was my only concern.
From a privacy point of view, we've got to respect that.
Yeah.
So would it be possible then to get a list of the committees, but also you'd mentioned there's some that aren't committees, even the project list would be useful too. Because if we have the project list and the committee list, and at least, or the committee names, at least we would know what's happening out there from our other subcommittees and make sure everything's done right.
Yeah, we can do that. Councillor Mooney, did you need your lights on?
Well, questions to committee chairs, Your Worship?
Yes, sir.
Just wanted the waterfront development about the music downtown. Do we have, and I'll find out tonight, do we have speakers in the park?
Deputy?
And I think that's when I supported the motion. I think my #1 preference was start in the park and then work our way out.
don't have speakers yet. It may be more difficult than we thought it might be, but we're actively working on it.
And the other question on the music is there a shut-off time at night?
I think there is now. Initially, when it first was lit up, some of it was going 24 hours a day, but now it's the music volume is respectful, and it's turned off at I would say, I don't know for sure, but between 9 and 10 o'clock.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good. Okay? Yes, certainly.
Just a question to the Chair of Waterfront Development. The music list, the music that is playing, the selection, I got a call from a lady who was a little tad concerned. I believe Councillor Mooney, you're in the same thing. Came call that some of the language was a little inappropriate. Something about a New York Christmas, whatever. But it was the language was fairly risque, and this woman was quite concerned because of her child on the street, as you can imagine. Do we screen those, or who selects those, or is that just a grab bag of songs? Apparently, one was a little bit inappropriate, as she suggested.
Deputy?
Your Worship, initially the music was supplied by one of the volunteers on the committee, and we've had some discussion I've had some discussion with a couple of other members or citizens of our community, and consequently, as a result of that discussion, we formed a music committee. And so what you're hearing today, as opposed to what it was, the music you heard early in the process, is slightly different and not as risque as the word you mentioned.
Thank you. Councillor, you're out lights. Okay, any more questions for committee chairs? Additions? Agricultural Society request for meeting. Councillor Dennis. Go ahead.
I think that's part of Councillor Mooney's, or do I still go with my motion?
Well, I don't think it is. I think
Okay.
if we're going to agree to sit down, and I will say this, I don't know if anybody got a copy, but I just, before I came in, got a note from CAO and the municipality that they were going to sit down as well. So
Okay.
maybe the best thing is a joint council meeting, sit down together and do that. Anyway, so go ahead.
Okay,
with
my
your-
motion is that a letter of invitation be sent to the municipality of Yarmouth, the Agricultural Society, and the Mariner Center Board of Directors for a meeting to discuss mutual concerns.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Councillor Langell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I got an issue with this. The Mariners Board looks after the facility. The Agricultural Society and the Yarmouth Exhibition is a wonderful organization. They do great work. They're a nonprofit organization, but really, I don't really think it's any of our concern. If they're going to come and say, we want $50,000 to do X, Y, or Z, I am not overly thrilled to come to a meeting which is going to be basically getting beat over the head. A letter to the editor I found very inappropriate. Councillor Mooney was hung out to dry on that letter, and I think that's, I'm looking at, I can't believe that they'd even expect us to come to the table. If it's going to be that uncivil and that accusational, I'm not interested in a meeting like that. I'd like a meeting that's going to be concrete, that's going to be agenda. I don't want one of those sessions where people are just going to be screaming at each other. We've had enough of those over the years. If we're prepared to do something proactive, and if they've got something on the table, yes, by all means. But to respond to some of the charges that were being made, I found very inappropriate. I found it unsettling. I think Councillor Mooney took a lot of criticism for something that was maybe brought up by some others around this table. And I mean, we as a council decided to go in that group as a team, and that was the approach at the committee of the whole, but they zeroed in on him, and I think it was very unfair on the comments that was made. So right now, I'm not really in favor of supporting the motion. If they want to come to us with a specific thing, but the way I'm seeing it, it's just a general discussion. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. Well, there's lots of groups that want us to have general discussion, and to be honest with you, we have got other issues in this town more important for general discussion than that one. I hate to say it. I don't, but if that's what council wishes, fine. Thank you.
Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had to leave because I had to use the washroom. That's one reason why I left. But for your mayor's report, I'm not in favor of. But anyway, but I did have to go and use the washroom. But nevertheless, I did catch the last of it, and it was nice. But anyway,
Don't patronize.
no, you don't have to worry me about patronizing you. I don't, you or anybody else. But anyway, getting back to the reason why I pressed my light. Do you think it's appropriate to meet with these before we meet as two municipal units and the Mariner Center Management Board to see where we are going, what we want to do? I think it's premature to meet with the Agricultural Society first before we meet to see what we want to do with that facility. The motion that was made tonight earlier by Councilor Mooney was a great motion, and that's the route I'd like to see go. But we have another partner. It's called the Municipality of Yarmouth, and I'd like to see, we should meet with our sister municipality and the board and the manager of the Mariner Center first. I'd like to see that first before we invite the Agricultural Society to come and give a presentation of what they'd like to do, what they'd like to see. I read your letter that you wrote them here. It was a great letter. I even commented on it. It was a great letter. It was to the point, it was factual, and it was the truth. Great letter. And you took a little bit of heat on that too, but nevertheless, you got big shoulders. I won't go there. But anyway, if the motion can be changed in any way to read that we as a municipal units and a management board meet first, and then perhaps invite the Agricultural Society to give a presentation, just a presentation, to see where they want to go, what they want to do, and let us municipal units and the management board discuss it after that, because it's no good to get in these shouting matches, and well, we went through all this before, Your Worship. I mean, this is not the first time we met with the Agricultural Society. This is not the first time that they either go away happy or happy. So I would strongly suggest that we meet as two municipal units and the management board and see what we want to do and where we want to go. I think it's a good motion, but I'd like to see the Agricultural Society dropped off till we meet. Then we can invite them to give a presentation. I mean, that makes more sense to me. I'm only speaking for myself, and I welcome any comments on that.
I'll comment. The municipality are our partners, and I think that discussion needs to occur.
Yes.
First as well.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Coun-
Yes, I am.
Councillor Dawes?
Thank you, Your
You're
Worship.
on.
I was just going to ask if we could ask our colleague there in the yes, you.
Duck Dynasty outfit.
If your experience, like you did just recently, I think last month, you sat down with the Agricultural Society. You had a meeting, did you not? And was that?
Do you mind coming up? Councillor Cunningham? I'm about to put the camera on you. Smile, you're on candid camera.
Okay, first and foremost, before I say anything, please remember that I'm not the spokesman for the municipality. I'm only a single councillor, and what I say here may not necessarily be the views of our council. So I just want to make sure that that's straight before I say anything or get lambasted or our warden have to say anything on what I may have to say.
Okay.
So,
I understand and I respect that. I only have a couple of very, very quick questions. Because through your experience, you could help us so we can have a vision of maybe what we would be looking at in the future. When you did sit down and meet with the Agricultural Society, was it at any time inappropriate or unsettling for anyone?
absolutely
And did
not.
a shouting match occur?
Absolutely not.
Is there anything that you could warn us about when we do sit down with them? Anything that we should be prepared for?
Well, what the gist of the whole meeting was they basically was looking for the municipality's stand on a possible project that they were putting forward about a different type of barn.
So
or
they were
a
very clear
facility.
on what
Yes.
their
And there was
goals
also
and
an
wants were.
agenda, and if I'm not mistaken, the warden, he sent you a letter stating that we already agreed to have a meeting with the with the group, with the Agricultural Society, and with the town, and with us, all present in one unit, just to sit down and discuss issues that they may have, because there's also issues of the exhibition not being able to use inside of the building next year, and we're just looking for a go-forward plan.
All right, I thank
Okay.
you very much. Was that helpful for you and for council that you did sit down with them?
Absolutely. It was nothing to do with shouting match. It was totally respectful, and they aired their concerns, and of course, some of our councillors aired some concerns of things that are going on,
And facts were shared, so now you're more informed.
absolutely.
So we
If
can be
I'm-
more
I
informed.
don't know if your CAO has received the letter from our CAO yet, but
Yeah.
you got it today, so I'm sure you didn't have a chance to read it over. Very briefly, yeah, because there's a lot of emails. So if there's
All right. I thank
Any
you very
more
much.
questions?
That's all I,
The gist of the whole meeting, like I said again, was not to sit and complain and gripe and get in a fight and get the town and municipality, who are equal funding partners at the Mariner Center, to get us butting heads. It's just to sit down and hear concerns, and just to, like you were talking about, a go-forward plan, a 20-year go-forward plan at the Mariner Center. Maybe, well, this will be part of it. So,
Good.
no,
Thanks.
since I'm here, I could answer any other questions.
Councillor Langell?
Well, yeah, Councillor Cunningham, the relationship between your council and the Agriculture Society, I would say, in the past several years has been pleasant.
Absolutely.
Good. I just want to make it clear, my comments, and I'm making that comment because right now, given the media report that I've been reading and the information I've been seeing, I would say the same pleasantry may not be existing for some of us around this table from our council level. And I just wanted it to make sure that Councillor Dawes' line of questioning was very good, and I commend her for it, but I don't want the illusion given that I'm nervous about going into a meeting. No, I want a proactive meeting with an agenda, and I've seen yet nothing concrete as to what we're going to do. And I also agree with the earlier motion this evening that we've got to look at what we're going to do with that whole complex up there, and I think it's premature. So I just wanted to clarify my position.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Sorry I didn't dress more appropriately, but I just got back from Halifax earlier.
Okay. Okay, so the motion that a letter of invitation be sent to the municipality of Yarmouth and the Mariner Center Board of Directors for a meeting to discuss mutual concerns. Is that appropriate? Okay? That's what the, yes. Okay, moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Questions been called? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Travel media, I gotta say this, my decisions are never based on what's said in the public or not. I don't know why I feel I need to say that, but there's just a lot of, you know, it doesn't affect me. Travel Media Association membership, Councillor Langell.
Your Worship, since the 250th, the town of Yarmouth have been members of the Travel Media Association. It's an organization of travel writers, and we have used their database quite a bit over the past. In recent discussions, there seems to be a greater interest now to get travel writers into the area, and it kind of gives us a little bit of an edge because we know who the key players are. In the past, Your Worship, because of our affiliation with the Travel Media Association, it does give us some leverage with the Nova Scotia Tourism Agency and the Nova Scotia government in partnering 50-cent dollars to bring in writers into our area when we've got a tremendous amount of positive press as a result. So as a result, I'd like to make a motion that we extend our membership for the Travel Media Association into the year 2014-2015.
How much is it?
$275.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Councillor Dawes, Typhoon. Go ahead.
What? Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have my, well, this was from last month, and it got carried over. Does this council wish to join with the rest of our sister municipal units all around the province that have sent in a donation to the victims of Typhoon Haiyan? That's all.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
So the motion...
Actually, no, it's not a motion. I just wanted to ask,
okay.
how do you feel about the tragedies that the people are going through there? I have lived there. I've lived through typhoons, monsoons, and earthquakes. They're in dire straits. They truly, truly are. We think we've got it tough when our power goes out one night in the winter for a few hours. But when you don't have anything for weeks and weeks, and you don't even have a roof over your head, every little bit is much, much appreciated, even if it's just a couple of candles. But I'm leaving it up to everybody's heart and nature and your will. That's all.
Councillor Mooney?
This has come up, Your Worship, time and time again. I know when I sat on council in 1985, and you can go right through to the present, that we've had natural disasters that have affected parts of Canada and other parts of the world. And I think the town council, there's ample opportunities through church groups, Red Cross, Salvation Army to donate, and the federal government matches those funds. You know, you could, I'm of the ilk, I donated through our church, but I'm of the ilk if taxpayers want to spend taxpayers' dollars donating overseas, they have ample opportunity with matching funds. And, you know, we can debate this all night, and it's not that I'm callous or I don't care about what happened in the Philippines, but we have some problems here, and we spent some money tonight. We want to bring tourism. We want to bring people back into Yarmouth, and people that want to donate to these causes can do it through different organizations. And not that I don't support the councillor, but...
It's okay. You're not breaking my heart.
Okay.
She didn't even make a motion. She
No,
just,
just, you know, it's going to come,
Yeah.
there's going to be something, you know, the tsunamis and the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you want to speak?
I don't want to speak to that, but I just wanted to just tell Councillor Dawson and the other councillors that the big ice storm, Quebec ice storm, that the AMO in town, we had sent out generators and stuff like that, and as far as I know, there's probably still there, so it's not like we don't help other counties and other provinces. We do, so.
Thank you. Okay, so you're not going to make the motion? No. Okay. And destruction of documents, CAO.
Thank you, Worship. Okay, so we have a destruction of documents bylaw, and there's a copy of it on your desk. So in order to destroy documents, the town of Yarmouth requires that the town clerk examine each document and sign an affidavit swearing that there's no value in the documents, and then we request a resolution to be passed by council to permit us to destroy the documents. So I took the time, well, actually we've had two staff going through a mountain of documents in the storage room, and a list of those documents has been circulated tonight. Now actually this is almost a list of the boxes of documents, okay? So most of them are financial records from the 90s, okay? These are not, for the most part, statements. They are receipts, receipt journals. They are part of the mechanics of doing the financial administration. the data records continue to exist. These are only paper reports, for the most part, that have come out of the financial system, or they are the minutia, the individual receipts that, or sorry, invoices that were paid back in the 90s for certain things. So there's checkbooks, there's canceled checks, there's a number of things. There's nothing, I was asked a couple of times, are there old agricultural society records in there? There's nothing of that nature in there. There are a number of boxes of records that are copies of documents from the town that were returned to us after the last election by former councillors who no longer wanted those files. They returned them to us, so they are not originals, they are all copies. So I'm quite all right if you'd like to view the pile yourself. It's in the storage room, and I would welcome you to accompany me down there to see the pile and see the kinds of things that we're actually talking about. So the resolution, Your Worship, is Schedule A in the three-page package that was handed out. I can read it if you like.
Go ahead.
Whereas the documents and records of the town of Yarmouth, as set out in the affidavit of Jeff Gushu, the town clerk, sworn to the 12th day of December 2013, are no longer required. And whereas, according to the said affidavit, the said documents and records have been personally examined by the said clerk, and he has determined that there is nothing of value therein, and that the said documents and records do not include any documents or records which are exempt from destruction pursuant to Section 3 of the Destruction of Document Bylaw, be it therefore resolved that the said documents and records as set out in the said affidavit of the said clerk be forthwith removed and destroyed.
Councillor McIsaac.
Well, you kind of stole my line there by saying I invite anybody that wants to go down and look at them. I was going to ask if you could show me the least important documents that you would think that should be destroyed, but you're saying all of them should be destroyed. It's a little bit of a joke. That's all it was. I did ask you the question about any other documents that would be of interest or anything, and you did answer that question when I went over there and talked to you. So I'm a supporter of this. You need a motion to do this, or just say that as presented by the CEO, I move that we take the recommendation of the CEO resolution?
Move the resolution that I just read.
Move the resolution that the CEO just read. I so move.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Deputy Mayor.
It mentions Jeff and Greg, the name or the word town clerk. That's still appropriate in today's world, as opposed to the chief administrative officer.
He's both. He gets a paycheck for both.
He gets, two different checks.
I just wanted. I was just dumb.
A few different titles, yeah. In some municipalities, the CAO and clerk are actually different roles, because there is a role for a town clerk defined in the Municipal Government Act, and it has to do with the management of records.
Yeah.
And so I hold that title, even though we do have a CAO.
I have left more than once a couple of old ledgers, and they go back into the early 1900s or late 1800s, and they just contain names, and some activity. And I think it's kind of interesting to have those old records. I think I'm as old as some of the records, but I understand that we have to discard, and destroy the appropriate records. So I'll be in support of the motion.
Councillor Dawes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will support it as well. But I just wanted to share something that every once in a while you do come across a little bit of history. I was in the upstairs offices of the museum some time ago, and right beside me at the table where I was sitting at the meeting, I happened to look down, and that box was full of books of town council meetings from the 30s and the 40s, and the way they kept minutes and notes then. It was very interesting. I asked if I could take some home and read them, and I was told no.
Jim was there.
But that's So, and when I read this, I realized, yes, you can't keep everything. And we do trust you. We know you're not going to throw anything important out. But that went through my mind, that some things you do want to hold on to, but some things you don't.
Your Worship, if I can address a couple of things there. When the prior CAO retired, an equally large pile of documents was sent over to the museum. They were much older than the documents that we're talking about now. And the museum came and we actually funded an incredibly expensive shelf for them to store those documents once they were sorted and cataloged. So they have quite a bit of old town stuff over there. Things like old minute books are not part of this. We keep the minute books in the vault here, and you're welcome to come and examine them anytime you like. They are interesting to read, some of the old minutes.
One book, I was just enthralled.
There are some things of no value that I did pull out just because they were sort of unique. Back in the day, and 20, 30 years ago, the town was issuing bonds with coupons when we issued debt, basically. And I found a little bit of a pile of those. And I asked the Director of Finance to set them aside in the vault because we don't do that anymore. And they're kind of neat. I just thought, you know what, they have no value, but at the same time, they're kind of different. And let's set them aside. And so anything like that was particularly interesting, we just, or had any doubt about, we took and we set aside. So this is the stuff that doesn't have any value.
Thank you. Okay, so the motion's on the floor. Who seconded that?
I did.
Okay, moved and seconded. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. 11E, terminal. CAO.
Thank you, Worship. I have a resolution, and I believe a version of this was circulated this afternoon. As you know, things have been developing rapidly around the terminal and around the potential for a contribution from the federal government being signed off very shortly. Transport Canada does require a resolution from Council. I have sent them previous resolutions approved by Council, and they sent me back one that they would like to have approved, and with your permission, I'll read it.
Certainly.
And ask Council to consider approving it at this time. Whereas the town of Yarmouth acquired the lands and buildings known as the Yarmouth Ferry Terminal located at 58 Water Street, Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, registered with the Nova Scotia Land Registry on December 6, 2013 as document number 104285284, and whereas the town intends to enter into a contribution agreement with the Government of Canada, whereby Canada will provide funding to the town of Yarmouth to rehabilitate the Yarmouth Ferry Terminal in order to support the resumption of Yarmouth Ferry service, and whereas the town intends to enter into a contract with the Yarmouth Area Industrial Commission to act as project manager specific to the rehabilitation of the Yarmouth Ferry Terminal property to support the ferry service, Council hereby authorizes Jeff Gushue, Chief Administrative Officer for the town of Yarmouth, to execute the said contribution agreement with the Government of Canada on behalf of the town of Yarmouth. And then this is to certify that this resolution was passed. Should it come to occur, we'll sign this off, shift it off to Transport Canada.
Okay, moved by Councillor McIsaac, second by Councillor Langell. Any discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Done like dinner. Okay. Approval of invoices.
Second.
Question's been called. All those in favor? Contrary. Motion carried. Date of next meeting is January 9th. So the committee of the whole, we just don't do? Is that what happens? Go ahead.
Before we, thank you, Your Worship, the levy, usually at this meeting we announce who, where, what, where, and why the levy is going to be. Is it here, is it in the county? Where are we at?
It'll be at, I believe it's at the municipality because we did it here last year.
Exactly.
The municipality.
And the hours of that, so the public are aware?
Are you aware of that, Councillor? Okay, noon, but I would
12
check,
noon?
and it'll
Okay.
be in the paper.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, it'll be in the paper and the website. We'll make sure we post it on ours as well. So my question about the committee of the whole, we just don't do that in December? Good, okay. Yep, all right, and a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor McIsaac. Okay, good night, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.